because I talked to Trina, and she's married. And I said, to me, we need to have respect on both sides of the ideas and put it in place you don't break the law. You're not breaking the law, you don't have to worry about it. Don't. Because I don't like to see people getting for so, and we'll talk. Okay.
I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the February 18th, 2025 meeting of your Ashland City Council. This meeting was called to order earlier this evening ahead of the executive session, and we are reconvening now to take up the agenda as it was posted. Will Councilor Kaplan, will you offer the land acknowledgement?
Yes. Thanks, Mayor. We acknowledge and honor the Aboriginal people on whose ancestral homelands we work. The Irkutsk Band of the Shasta Nation, as well as the diverse and vibrant native communities who make their home here today. We honor the first stewards in the Road Valley and the lands we love and depend on. Tribes with ancestral lands in and surrounding the geography of the Ashland watershed include the past, present, future indigenous inhabitants of the Shasta, Takelma, and Athabascan people. We also recognize and acknowledge the Shasta village of Quakaka, where the crow lights, that is now the Ashland City Plaza.
And Councilor Hanson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
That's me. Nauer? Here. Dale?
Here.
Bloom?
Here.
Graham?
Here.
Kaplan?
Here.
Duquesne?
Here.
Hanson?
Here.
Great. Councilor Dale?
Mayor, thank you. I would like to make a motion to add a topic to the agenda tonight that is an item of timeliness for AMC, if I may.
Yes.
Second.
I move to appoint Johan Pietila as the city attorney and authorize the mayor and council chair working with the appropriate city staff to negotiate a contingent employment agreement with Johan for future council consideration.
Second.
So, roll call, please.
So before we do this motion, I believe you need to make a motion to add an item, have a second, and have council vote to add the item to the agenda.
That's what we're doing. That was the motion. Oh, I understand. You were trying to add a
Sure. So
motion.
if I could
Add an
withdraw
agenda
that
item.
motion.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to motion to add. I move to add a topic to tonight's agenda due to timeliness.
Second.
Yes. Okay. And we all understand what that topic is. So roll call, please, Alyssa.
Nauer? Dale?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Great. Now we're
Thank you. So for mayor's announcements, we will start this evening.
Now he has to do it.
He needs to make the motion.
So now,
We're not adding it at a later place on the agenda?
I believe you should do it now since it's related to executive session.
Okay.
okay.
Go ahead, Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to appoint Johan Pietila as the city attorney and authorize the mayor and council chair working with appropriate city staff to negotiate a contingent employment agreement with Johan for future council consideration.
Second.
Okay. Would you care to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson?
Yes.
Duquesne? I'm the new Alyssa.
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Nauer?
Okay, great, thank you. So I will start by offering a proclamation in honor of Black History Month 2025. Whereas Black History Month, first proposed by scholar Carter G. Wilson in 1926, seeks to rightfully center the role of Black Americans in our national narrative. And whereas this year's theme is African Americans and labor, with a focus on the various and profound ways that work of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersects with the collective experiences of Black people. Whereas 2025 marks the 100-year anniversary of the creation of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and Maids by labor organizer and civil rights activist A. Philip Randolph, which was the first Black union to receive a charter in the American Federation of Labor. Whereas the theme African Americans and Labor intends to encourage broad reflections on the intersections between Black people's work, their workplaces, and our larger society across time and space throughout the U.S. During Black History Month, let us draw inspiration from this legacy as we continue together on the path toward equality, liberty, and opportunity for all. Our shared history shows us that we rise and fall together, an enduring lesson reflected in the words of Dr. Maya Angelou. The truth is, no one of us can be free until everyone is free. Now, therefore, I, Tanya Graham, Mayor of the City of Ashland, Oregon, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2025 as Black History Month and call upon the people of Ashland to observe this month with appropriate reflection and learning, and to continue our efforts to create a more just and equitable community and society. In Ashland, we are better together.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. I also want to take this moment to thank this community for everything that it did to help us get through the snowstorm. In my almost 28 years of living here, I have never seen that much snow on the ground all at once. And when these sorts of things happen, it requires that we all pull together and we do what we can where we can see. And what I saw was neighbors helping neighbors. I saw people digging cars out, scraping sidewalks, helping each other as I made my way around town. And I also wanted to take this time to acknowledge the good work of the people at the city. One of the things that we know is that when the city workers are doing their job well, they are often unseen. And so I want to highlight what happened at your city during this emergency. Our fire department responded to 82 911 calls within a 48-hour period during the height of the winter storm event. It is a record for us. Police responded to 195 calls, with 160 of them being weather-related incidents. Over in the electric department, we had 80-plus calls for trees and limbs on lines that they responded to. We had 8 reportable outages. The longest outage lasted only about 2 hours. And that was really important as people were working to keep their homes warm and keep their lives moving forward. They were working 18-hour shifts for 3 days in the electric department to make sure that our electricity stayed on. And the tree crew is continuing to assist parks with continued cleanup of the damaged trees. Over in the street division, they used approximately 276 yards of cinders and had 212 hours of overtime for the storm. So all of that snow plowing and traction help on the roads. They also managed dozens of downed trees during the event to help clear our roads. AFN restored internet to 200 plus residents during the event, and the city emergency management and communications team were in constant coordination and collaboration with the county while we also scrambled to help our unhoused people get in out of the storm. So all of that is what we do as a community when we have an incident like this that goes out beyond what our capabilities are really as a city municipal operation. They stepped up and our residents stepped up. People stayed home as much as they could, and when they had to drive, they drove carefully, and that's how we made it through. And so I just wanted to say thank you to our city staff, and also thank you to our residents for responding in such a beautiful and community-driven way. If you are here for the first time and have not spoken to the council before, I want to make sure that you have the instructions for how to do that. There are speaker request forms up on the left side wall there. You'll fill it out and put it in this basket just on the rail there for Alyssa. When you fill that out, please make sure that you indicate on the form if you are here to speak on a specific agenda item, or if you are here for public forum, which is when you would talk to us about anything that is not a specific agenda item. Please note also that we need to have that form in hand at the beginning of the item on the agenda so that we can appropriately time how long it will take to get us through. We have a busy agenda this evening, but we want to hear from everyone. And so if you can make sure that you get those papers in as early as you possibly can, that will help us with that work. Also, our speaking podium is to the right here. And if you have any mobility issues and would prefer to speak with a microphone, please just raise your hand when I call your name, and we will bring the microphone to you where you are sitting. Okay, we move on now to the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Councillor Kaplan?
I move approval of the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
That's me. I'm roll call today.
Oh, your roll call today. Sabrina, roll call, please.
Hanson.
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
And that brings us to the consent agenda. Would any counselor like to remove any item from the consent agenda? Counselor Dale?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull item A, please.
Item A. Are there any others? Okay, the floor is open for a motion to accept the agenda, the consent agenda minus number A, or letter A. Counselor Duquesne?
I move that we accept the consent agenda minus item A.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please, Sabrina?
Bloom.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Counselor Dale, would you care to speak to item A?
I absolutely would. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to pull this item, not because I have anything other than the full and complete support and appreciation for these two outstanding appointments, but rather because one of the applicants is a very close friend to many of us in this community. I asked former Councilor Paula Hyatt permission if I could share a brief exchange that we had a few days ago, during the snowstorm actually, that ended up taking the shape of a call to action, and because it's especially important tonight, and she absolutely deserves to be credited here. People are looking to do something right now. Our local committees are vital to standing up for our values, and there are avenues to contribute and have one's voice heard. By applying for and serving on a citizen committee, our residents can work for what they believe in and that they need to know that they have options. They don't need to feel like the news cycle is just happening to them, but rather that they really can make a difference starting on our own front doorstep. Hope matters, values matter, and previously routine items matter. Solid leadership is so important, and people need to hear this more than ever. As Paula eloquently noted to me, Margaret Mead put it best, quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bloom?
Yeah. So I was going to pull this as well, to say something of Paula and the other applicant and the work that Paula did to establish this ad hoc committee and the great work and the dozens of families that have been positively impacted by this. But I learned long ago, 2 years ago when I got into the seat, to never try and top Paula Hyatt. So I'll leave it at that.
So the floor is open for a motion to address item A.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Counselor Bloom?
I move to approve the appointment of Paula Hyatt and Lynn Ransford to the Ad hoc Committee on Affordable Childcare and Early Childhood Development.
Second.
Roll call, please, Sabrina?
Kaplan.
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome, Paula and Lynn, and thank you so much for stepping forward to serve your community in this way. We now have the finance update.
It's on the laptop.
My apologies. I meant to do this a little bit earlier, so I wouldn't have to have you wait. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Mary Ann Berry, Director of Finance and Technology. I am here this evening to review the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financials ending September 30th, 2024. It would have normally been presented in early November. However, during the thick of audit season, we regret that it was overlooked. This will put us back on track, and we will be reviewing second quarter results in March. Before I get started, I want to mention that for the period ending September 2024, we had not yet made any adjustments that were part of our fiscal year-end process and audit. It's not advancing. Okay. There we go. Okay. For those who have followed or reviewed closely the financials year over year, you may have noticed that there would have appeared to be a discrepancy with the accounting treatment of the Parks General Fund, Parks Equipment Fund, and the Health Benefits Fund. September financials were not adjusted for the dissolution of those funds and the creation of the SDC funds until October 2024, which is why you still see them shown as such. I'm happy to say that our Ashland City Councilors are really great reviewers of the financials and were astute enough to ask those questions. There was not an error, but a timing difference between when the year-end adjustments were made, which was in October, in the accounting system. Citywide fund and cash balances stayed the same. So getting into the results for the 3 months ending September 2024, and it's still early in the year in terms of revenue collections. We do not normally collect property taxes until November, and TLT, transient lodging, and food and beverage taxes are collected in quarterly arrears. Therefore, you will not see those revenues until next quarter. It is worthwhile to note that at the end of the first quarter 2025, investment income is already at 96% of budget. As for expenditures, it is still early in the year, and therefore we are in budgetary compliance. We'll be watching department budgets as we move closer to the end of the biennium. You may notice that capital spending was not tracking with the budget due to the timing of the WIFIA loan for the water treatment plant and the RESP loan for the on-bill financing program. WIFIA is expected to close in May, and the USDA legal team has moved forward their review to the next level within their organization. I don't have a timing on that, but I remain hopeful that we will continue to push that forward. The city's net position is tracked by its ending fund balance, which for the period of September 30th was $82.7 million overall, up from $77.1 million the previous year, and then $14.6 million for the general fund, up from $13.6 million year over year. It really could go up or down from the previous year depending on timing of revenues and expenditures. Cash and investments for the city for this period was $75.8 million, and for the general fund was $14.2 million. I was asked to clarify the difference between the fund balance and the cash and investment balance. The city's net position is tracked by its ending fund balance. The fund balance or net position is based on revenues and expenditures as we record them in our books. As a city, we are on the modified accrual basis of accounting, which differs from a purely cash basis form of accounting. We book expenditures based on payables. For example, when checks to vendors are issued versus when they are actually cashed from our bank account. Likewise, we carry accounts receivable on our books, which means we haven't yet collected on them, but we intend to. So it's not in our cash balance. So the difference between fund balance and cash investments has elements in both revenues and expenditures of timing differences that our good people in accounting are reconciling monthly to ensure we are properly tracking those accounts. As a city, we are on the modified accrual basis of accounting. There were a couple questions from council regarding our investment policy, so I thought I'd spend a little bit more time here to review it. Our current investment policy is dictated by Resolution 2018-02. It is based on the primary objective of preservation of capital, while also seeking income on the yield curve. The yield curve takes into consideration the credit quality of the investment and the length of time it is held, or in other words, the maturity. As you can see from the snippet, our investment policy only allows high-grade instruments such as treasuries, agencies, A1P1 paper, commercial paper, and the LGIP, which is Oregon's local government investment pool fund. Our policy also has maturity limits. We can't invest for longer than 3 years, and the weighted average maturity cannot exceed 2 years. Also, our liquidity must drive when maturities occur. So, for example, the water treatment plant expenditures, we would track liquidity based on that, as an example. Today, however, the market is volatile. There is also not much inventory in the way of commercial paper and other high-grade investments, such as agencies. Also, we have a somewhat inverted yield curve with LGIP, the local government pool, which is at 4.7% versus a 6-month bill at 4.1%. And anecdotally, a 1-year T-bill is at less than 4% at 3.9%. Therefore, we have not been going out on the curve, and our weighted average maturity is less than 2 months. Contrast that with our maturities last year, which were anywhere from 3, 6, or 9-month terms. I also want to mention that we do have a legal limit that we can invest with LGIP, and that is currently set at $61.7 million. That's the maximum. And this is another aspect within which we must manage our cash. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilor Kaplan?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mary Ann. This is very good. You've hit some of my questions. And I know that you're going to be giving the second quarterly update next month, so I'm not going to ask too many questions, mostly about our forecasting for the budget, because I think next month is going to be useful to see where we are as we go into our preparation for the biennium budget starting July 1st, right?
Correct.
But I appreciate the detail on the investment policy. That was a question. One of my additional questions that you didn't get to was the shift, the significant shift from the local government investment pool into other city investments, because we're still quite well below the limit of $61 million in the LGIP. But there's still a shift of about $10 million, I think. $8.6 million less in the LGIP and $10 million more in the city investment pool. So what's the thinking behind that? You're just avoiding the LGIP at this point because you think that they've got their...
Are you speaking to the end of September or
yes,
in particular?
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm looking in the rearview mirror because that's all I've got.
Right. So where you were reflecting that LGIP was, you had anticipated it to be higher?
Well, I just noticed that we shifted over, compared to the previous year, $8.6 million out of the LGIP, going from, I think, 45 down to 37. And we went up in the investments from, city investments from 21 to 31. So it's quite a substantial shift over a course of a year.
21 to 31 increase of city investments. Yes, so that mostly is attributable to our longer-term investments that we had set early in the year that were set to mature generally in, I think it was November and December timeframe. So there was a higher balance of city investments. Is that where you're tracking? Yeah. What you'll see, though, is the flip occur in starting November, December.
So second quarter.
Primarily because our cash did increase substantially once we received property taxes. And you'll start to see that investments needed to be managed on a couple of different levels from the perspective of we weren't really sure what was going to happen at the beginning of the year, so we didn't want to be putting out funds into the new year without, a little bit more horizon understanding. So we did shift it a little bit more towards the LGIP funds. However, because we had, by November, due to property taxes, we had so much cash, we really had to be able to manage that maximum threshold with LGIP, because it is a state maximum
So
balance.
we'll see it creeping up towards that maximum. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Miriam. So I was looking at the slides that you sent us, that you sent to council, and on page 2, I believe, it's page 2, and looking at the fund balances, I noticed that the expenses for the Public Works Department is overspending. It's 32.3% of its annual budget in the first quarter, and I didn't know what the explanation for that was. When I looked at the other departments, everybody is under 25. The other departments are coming in 22, 21. I didn't know if you could explain that.
So I'm looking at page 2, and the page 2 being the Statement of Revenues and Expenditures citywide, and you're looking at the Public Works line.
Where it says, if I look under, it says it's at 32.3%, and when I look at the other departments, everybody's under 25% in spending. Expenditures.
I might not have the same.
Let me see. Oh, I'm sorry, page 3.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was looking at page 2. Okay, so page,
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
2, but in the packet it's page
Yeah.
3.
Because we had the other one previous. I remember.
I
don't know if
do
it's
not,
timing difference.
I pulled a more detailed packet, so I don't know what my pages are. Before I lob the question to, I will get back to you on that. I want to try first to answer it. What is on the top, what's the top header of it? Is it a certain fund, or is it?
What it has here, it says general fund expenditures, but this says statement of resource requirements and charges in fund expenditures.
And Public Works is a
Fund
little bit
balance,
higher?
I'm sorry.
And Public Works is a little bit higher, is that what you're
Yes.
saying? So as I was saying earlier, there are just timing differences. It could very well be without, I can specifically get back to you as to what it might be, but generally there are timing differences between how expenses are getting paid out. And, like, as I mentioned, I can get back to you with specifics on that, but
I'd appreciate that, because the others are like hitting 22, 21, and it's 32.3, so it kind of stuck out. So
And I will say that's not overly concerning. It just because there are timing differences, and Public Works is one of those departments that has a whole different type of cash flow than any other department.
Okay, well, I appreciate
But I will get back to you
Thank
on
you.
that. You bet.
Counselor Bloom?
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate Councilor Kaplan asking. I asked the exact same question that he asked a little bit earlier. You might have touched on this. There was a little bit of a feedback loop happening in the lobby out there. Given our current economic climate, are we going to be pursuing a less aggressive investment strategy, more aggressive? Where do you see it? Is it staying about where we are?
Yeah, so we receive quarterly updates from our investment advisor, which is currently Wells. And we also receive information in terms of, yields and types of investment instruments that are out there. Like I mentioned earlier, there is just not a whole lot of inventory. Treasuries, even agencies are slim pickings.
Yeah.
I will say, as an example, there was a Farm Mac agency that was available. I was hesitant, so I passed on it because of the current volatility within the federal administration around agencies. and not really knowing where that's going. So sticking with, there has also been very low inventory around commercial paper. So Treasuries and LGIP has been the instrument of choice. Yeah. So it's been a little bit more conservative from that perspective because of the unknowns.
Reasonably, I appreciate that. And if I could, a second question. You answered all of my questions. You answered amazingly that I sent previously, but I would like to touch on it for the public's sake. Looking at the tourism fund, there was a decline there, but as you mentioned, it was budgeted and we're spending how we should be spending it. Could you speak to that fund in particular, about it being a restricted fund or unrestricted fund? Because I think there's a lot of questions folks have about, for instance, the trash cans and why didn't we spend that on something else? And could you speak a little bit to that, about why that is the way it is?
Mm-hmm. It is a restricted fund, and it does need to, the expenditures do need to fall under state guidelines around tourism-related type of expenditures. And so it was budgeted, the trash cans as well as beautification grants, and gosh, I'm trying to remember some other.
So we also have event grants and wayfinding that we'll be doing before the end of this biennium.
Yep.
So thank you. So to put it simply, we cannot take TLT dollars and say we want to spend it on an additional police officer.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you, Mary Ann.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your good answers here, and also I know there was a lot of traffic with counselors asking questions before, and we appreciate that responsiveness.
Happy to.
We now move on to public forum, and this is the opportunity for people in the community to speak with us about items that are not on the agenda. We have 4 people who have signed up for this evening, and we have a time limit for it. So each person will have 3 minutes to address the council. What you will do is come up to that space, and again, if you need to stay seated, please raise your hand. You will have 3 minutes. Alyssa will give you a single chime when you have 20 seconds left of your time. And she'll give you a double chime when your time is finished, at which point, please finish the sentence you are on, and then take your seat so that the next person can speak to the council. Our first speaker is Paul Mozina, followed by Miles Brooks.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to, I sincerely appreciate all your service to the city, especially in the last month, and I appreciate this time. I forgot to say my name is Paul Mozina. I live in Ashland. I'm sorry, I always forget to say that. But I do appreciate your service. I know what an incredible time commitment it is for you to do this. When it comes to any council action that could potentially benefit the solar power industry, Councilor Hansen always lets the people know that he is the owner of a solar provider. I am concerned that when agenda items that purport to address the supposed climate crisis come before the council, Mayor Graham never mentions that she is the executive director of the GEOS Institute, which promotes the notion that we are in the throes of a human-caused climate crisis. The GEOS Institute paid Mayor Graham over $100,000 in 2023. That's a 39% increase over 2022. In 2023, GEOS received over $1.7 million in anonymous donations, a 1,500% increase over 2022. One donation was $1.5 million, and the smallest donation was $20,000. Who are these deep-pocketed donors? There's obviously a potential conflict of interest here that must be acknowledged by the mayor and the council. In its Climate Ready America white paper, GEOS repeatedly claims that we are in the human-caused climate crisis. Mayor Graham stated at a study session last summer regarding climate change that, quote, it is a crisis and it is on us, quote. This messaging is perfectly aligned. What if U.S. Representative Cliff Benz was pursuing an agenda of increasing the use of natural gas, while at the same time he was the executive director of a nonprofit advocating for the natural gas industry? And what if this nonprofit paid him 10 times his congressional salary while receiving tens of millions of dollars in anonymous donations? What if there's a tie vote tonight on Ordinance 3254, the carbon tax? Should the executive director of the GEOS Institute make the deciding vote? The council should excuse the mayor from voting on Ordinance 3254 tonight in case there is a tie. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Miles Brooks, followed by Debbie Nicewander.
Mayor Graham and members of the City Council, my name is Miles Brooks. I've been a resident of Ashland for a year now. I moved here because I was drawn to Ashland's love of the arts, its access to the outdoors, and its community that cares about each other. I'm here to ask the City Council to improve its treatment of the unhoused community. Weather this winter has been cold and wet, and folks who are unhoused should have a place to go. In 2023, the city bought a space for a severe weather shelter. And last year, that space was used to get people warm and for people to sleep. This year, the capacity was reduced by over half to only 14, which is not enough to shelter even those who have the highest access needs or have severe health issues. We know that this space can sleep more people. It was last year, and it does in emergency conditions. So I'm asking the City Council to do what you can to improve the capacity of that space. There are people who have no other option than to be outside, and this shelter is a place where people can finally rest to warm up their extremities, people who are going cold and hungry. I don't know what it takes to do that, whether that's, changing the capacity of the building, finding other buildings and other spaces to do that. There's so many places in town that are warm all night that lay empty, this building included, right? And what can be done to provide space so people can get out of the elements? Volunteers around the city have been working tirelessly, staying up all night to ensure that volunteer spaces can be held for people to sleep. These are people who are just dedicating their time and their resources out of their own pockets, but are not being asked to. And it's your job to be able to fend for these people that are our neighbors, people that I believe, have an obligation to help. I would like to thank Mayor Graham for your work and your support in that, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Debbie Nicewander, followed by Patricia Holman. If you can stand over at the microphone.
Hello, my name is Debbie Nicewander, Ashland resident, and I'm here to talk about expulsions, civil expulsions, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed right now, so my thinking is all scattered, but I'm leaving you all with a packet, and in the packet, the first portion of it is about expulsion, and I just want to reiterate, on June 17, Mayor Graham asked O'Meara to report back to council in 6 months before taking up a conversation about the new ELIA, and that never happened. The first reading was in November after 5 months of that conversation, so I've included my own report. So I hope you take the time to read it. I'll see you tomorrow night regarding this information. And then the second part of the packet is about civil expulsions. And my concern on that is we don't have case numbers or a transparency. We don't have a record, so I don't know how we intend on tracking these civil expulsions if the new exclusion ordinance goes into effect, and that's concerning. So please take the time to look at it, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you for your testimony. Patricia Holman?
Hello, councilors, mayor. My name is Patricia Holman. I'm a resident, homeowner, and good neighbor of Ashland, Oregon. I'm here to talk tonight about fire safety and smart meters. Smart meters do not have surge protection, and they do not have a connection to ground. Instead, meter manufacturers put a varistor on the digital meter circuit board. Varistors are useful for short duration protection in cases of high transient voltage surges on the order of 1 to 1,000 microseconds. They are not equipped to handle sustained surges. If a transient pulse energy is too high and exceeds the absolute maximum ratings, varistors melt, burn, and can explode. The varistor can't withstand more than 300 volts AC surge. It will explode when a line voltage surge exceeds this limit, such as when a tree branch touches the high voltage lines or lightning strikes occur nearby. Once this varistor explosion has occurred, it permits high voltage to transfer to the other circuit board components and board substrates. This results in the AMI meter literally exploding from the meter socket, or a severe melting of plastic components, likely leading to a fire and/or severe home damage. This is not how a circuit board should be protected. As an integral component of a smart metering device, the varistor failures are extremely dangerous. Once the progression of the subsequent short circuit begins, the line transformer will apply up to 2,000 amps to the meter housing until either the feed lines to the home disintegrate and vaporize, or the transformer line breaker fuse trips out after 50 seconds. By this time, the damage is so extensive as to jeopardize all life. Repeated surges up to the meter's varistor's maximum threshold will weaken the varistor and eventually destroy it, also allowing unregulated current to flow into the building. No such condition applies to an analog meter. Smart meters have malfunctioned in significant numbers, causing many building fires. East Palo Alto and Stockton, California, Summerlin and Forest, Ontario are a few incidents when many smart meters failed simultaneously and disastrously due to a surge. Insurance providers with knowledge of fire risk may insist on rewiring for homes with smart meters at a significant cost to homeowners. With no liability from the city or meter manufacturers, this is an onerous financial burden on homeowners. Not only is a smart meter a risk to a home with old wiring, but if that home should catch fire, an entire neighborhood is at risk. The infrastructure required to implement smart meter installation and back-end monitoring citywide is likely exponentially greater than the cost of current monitoring services. Additionally, smart meters have a surveillance component, which is subject to security breach. Policy overreach from current city leadership is forcing home-owning residents into a monetized, capricious, and ideological corner, using cherry-picked signs to force their agenda, infiltrating a most sacred and private space, a person's home and lifestyle. Therefore, any proposed citywide, I'm just done.
Ms. Holman,
any
your time
citywide
is up.
implementation of
Ms.
smart
Holman, you're
meter
finished.
installation must be
Officer?
accompanied by a no-opt.
Ms. Holman, your time is completed.
I just want to finish. I just want to finish a no
Ms. Holman,
fee
Ms.
opt-out
Holman,
clause
Ms. Holman,
for
your time
homeowners
is
who choose
complete.
to eliminate fire
You need
risk
to be finished
and
with offering your
liability from an
testimony.
unsecured,
You are done now.
untested
Thank you very
device.
much for your testimony.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we move on now to the first public hearing tonight, first reading of ORD 3256, an ordinance amendment to AMC 2.30 Uniform Administrative Appeals Process, designating the municipal court as the administrative appeal body.
All right, can everyone hear me?
not very well. If you can
Okay.
get that microphone a little
There
closer.
we go. Mic check?
Yes.
Yeah, so for some background, as you all know, and for the public, a form of city governance is to have an appeals process in the government. It provides an avenue for citizens to challenge departmental decisions, and it's also then an opportunity for the department to ensure that they're process-oriented, and that as long as the department stayed by their processes, the applicant or the appellant could have the last word in an appeal process. So that's some background for sort of the importance of an appeal body in governance, and that certainly applies for municipal governance. In this scenario, the other recommendation, currently the hearings officer is put as the city manager. As many people are familiar with traditional separation of powers, there's the legislature, the policymakers, which is the city council. There's the city manager who executes the policies. And then there's the judicial branch that then carries out the adjudication of the policies on top of any legality issues that could come by. I think that this was kind of a mayor form of government holdout, perhaps. And so for me, I think it's good governance that there's separation between basically the three branches of government. And this isn't to say that that someone in the city manager's role couldn't do it, and so I propose to keep that option in there. Certainly, anyone who's capable of filling the shoes of a city manager has the ability to adjudicate a municipal appeal. So I left that option in for the city, especially if there is a conflict of interest, and being in a small community that does happen. And then lastly, I'd say that putting the appeals process in the court not only fits with the separation of powers, but also a judge is trained in going about a process where everyone is heard, and going about a process that has skill in managing a courtroom, and having that familiarity with process, I think is a really good benefit for the city and a really good benefit for the appellant. So with that, I'll leave it up to council. I know I received some questions, which I'm happy to take on now, or leave it up to the mayor.
Questions? Councilor Kaplan.
Yeah, thanks, Carmel. And I did send you my questions ahead of time. So, but for the benefit of the public as well, there's a range of topics that are subject to appeal. And I remember, a new ordinance last year where the city manager was the person designated as the hearing officer. Could you give us just the full range of topics, of administrative topics where there is that appeal, so we can just get a better handle on that? And then second, and then I guess part of that, though, is with the judge, I'm specifically thinking about the utility disconnections. Would the judge play that role as the hearing officer for that decision? And then the second question I have is just in terms of reporting. The judge is now giving us a monthly report on the cases before the court, which is terrific. And I'm wondering if we can also get a monthly report on his role as hearing officer as well.
Yeah, certainly. And thank you for fielding that question to me ahead of time, because I was able to go through the code pretty thoroughly. So the list of appeal issues that are spelled out in the code, and having said that, there can be departmental decisions that are not necessarily listed, that if a department head is like, look, I've reached my final decision, this is it, you can go to the appeal process. So this is not necessarily an exhaustive list, but having said that, the issues the appeal in the code applies to does, to answer your question, apply to utility appeals, abatement hearings, which is if the city is enforcing code violations, for example, enormous amounts of junk, and the bill is substantial or of any amount, we could go for abatement. There are also appeals. The code provides appeal processes around transient occupancy tax, marijuana products, business license, the dangerous building chapter, park expulsions, issues on deciding on whether camping material are of apparent value or utility, noise permit appeals, public work denial appeals, and then to answer your question about telecommunications, that part is in our land use code. And so the appeals one would not apply, the hearings, the municipal judge would not hear telecommunication appeals because it's in our land use, and the reason for that is because there are really strict notice, a whole host of really strict notice requirements and opportunity for the public to comment. And so that's distinct.
Okay.
Yeah. And to answer your other question, yes, absolutely. In the reporting, that would be probably no problem. And for context, in the over 2 years I've been here, I've overseen, the city has had 2 appeals.
2?
Yeah, and so, I mean, I think generally the city has tries to work with citizens ahead of time, give notice, tries to cooperate, and so I think that's part of the reason for such a low, and I think a lot of citizens just kind of want to go about normal business. So to give some context for the amount of appeals that we've seen.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. Maybe that would have been, at first, I probably wouldn't have asked the question.
Yeah.
Other questions? Councillor Nauer?
The question I had on this one, Carmel, was...
Councillor, can you get in a little closer to that mic or bring it closer towards you?
I'll lean over this way. Just from a business perspective, when a decision is being challenged, I would have looked for someone in inline management to do that review, which in this case, we're talking about it going up to the city manager. Key reason being that it makes certain that there is knowledge of decisions that are potentially challengeable, and is my staff doing a good job with it or not. If we circumvent that and drop it over into the municipal court judge, we've now gone sideways. And that information either has to be redundantly sent to the city manager, or we lose sight of the direct line on this. So I'm thinking it's not the best structure from a well-run organization's perspective, but I also just learned that there were only 2 of them. So I get where this might be coming from. But I also wonder, as far as the role description for our judge, if we include this in his job description, her job description, what do they have to come up to speed on in order to be able to do this effectively?
Well, what do they have to do to get up to speed? For one, that would be my role as a city attorney to present the case. And if I as the city attorney and me with the department head next to me, if we can't present our case to the municipal judge, then we lose. And we haven't met the burden that's outlined in the appeal process, and the burden outlined in the appeal process. Mm-hmm. And so part of my case, I think, also is to communicate the department. And yeah, sounds like.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the city manager knowing, the hearings are really typically a question of have we followed city process or not properly. That's the question of the hearings. That is what the city attorney and department are demonstrating, whether or not they follow that process. So in terms of the city manager being aware of whether or not staff is properly following the process, I'm not concerned about losing sight of that because I'm often well aware of this process long before it gets to the hearing appeal level. So even if I'm not the hearings officer, I will be aware of it.
Hypothetical, if we move something like this and it's a dollar issue into the municipal court and they don't like the court's decision, what's next step?
I mean, that's I would say a case-by-case issue, so it's a little bit difficult to say, but if it ends up changing operations, then that would be something that, me and the department head could communicate to management and or go back to the department and see if there was some error in our process.
I hear what you're saying. And because this is de minimis as far as a number of instances, but
Yeah.
once I move it into the judicial process from the administrative process, there's a different set of expectations, I think.
Well, I would maybe respectfully disagree a little bit because the hearings officer is the city manager, but wears the hat of the hearings officer. Which is kind of actually the reason for the proposal is to actually create a little bit of separation for that.
Okay, I get it.
Any other questions? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Did you have another question?
No.
Oh, the floor is open for a motion. Councilor Bloom?
Oh, did you have a question, Councilor? Okay.
Councilor Dale?
I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor, if that's okay. I move to approve.
Oh, wait, hold on.
You're in. Here, yep.
I open the formal public hearing. Alyssa, do we have anyone who has signed up to speak to us?
We have a late submission if you choose to accept it or not.
Yes, please. I didn't see that come in. Thank you. Debbie Nicewander. You'll have 3 minutes. Is that enough time to speak to this issue? Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, Debbie Nicewander. If this new process is approved, it would be helpful if we could come up with some kind of form so that when our homeless community needs to file an appeal against civil expulsions that are occurring, that they kind of have a guideline as to the data because they really struggle with speaking and writing, and so therefore they typically do not go through the appeal process. But if we could provide them with an outline, it would be very helpful. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. Councilor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 3256 with the following change to 2.30.020 section C, which shall read, quote, "The appellant shall pay a non-refundable appeals fee to facilitate that appeal." That's unchanged. "Appeals fee shall be set by resolution of the Ashland City Council."
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Dale?
Thank you. I appreciate, Carmel, the work and have no problem with it and understand Councilor Nauer's concerns there. This is, to me, is a housekeeping thing. I think that fees should be placed not within an ordinance, but in a resolution where there's flexibility for us to monitor that, so forth, and not locked in by way of ordinance. So given this is a first reading, if we could just make that little bit of a change relative to best practices and uniform code, I think that would read better and give us ability to
to work with folks better, okay?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, thank you. Great catch. Good suggestion there. I think this is a good housekeeping item. Also, I think that there's there can be a sense of I'm filing an appeal because I feel that the city is not doing something right and I'm not okay with that, to then have to go to the city manager and expect a result, whether fair or not. You might walk away as a citizen feeling that wasn't fair, but to go to an independent adjudicator, it makes perfect sense. And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is about separation of powers and is long overdue. So thank you.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate what was brought forth about the change. However, in adopting this in our first reading, I am in agreement with which was brought up earlier to add information so that we can have consistent information going out to our unhoused residents, so that we can implement the guidelines in this ordinance so that it would help have guardrails for our unhoused. So as I appreciate what was changed in the first reading of this, I don't know if my colleague would like to add that too, or shall we wait?
Well, and if I may, I mean,
I don't know if you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carmel.
If I may, I'm happy to review to respond to your question. I think that would also be a process question of like having a form, making sure that anyone who has especially if there's something that there is like a consistent complaint, that people know their appeal rights. And so I think that would be a process thing that we can look at. And I know I believe for some of our civil expulsions that's already on the ticket. So, I mean, our offices, we're happy to look at it again and work with the community. But so I think it would be a process one. I don't think that would be something we'd put in ordinance.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the process and being able to look and see if it's already there, because we are going to review the ELIA tomorrow. So moving forward, I believe to be able to have the consistency and have it in order, I would like to see that process at the second reading so that everything can be consistent.
So just a point of clarification, I think this ordinance is really kind of an umbrella of all the appeal processes. And so within, Carmel had a long list of where there's a hearings officer. We can review the code for those particular items to see where we might be able to shore up some of the process that you're speaking about, right? So when we had the utility committee process for utility, like it's very spelled out, so we can review the processes that fall underneath this ordinance to see if we need to amend those ordinances or improve our internal process for notification or make it easier for people to understand. It is probably not appropriate to place in this ordinance because there are numerous things that kind of fall underneath this ordinance.
Understandable. Do you know when we might be able to have that process done? I understand this is broad, but looking directly at our unhoused residents, we might have that process done.
So I think as we're reviewing the ELIO, we can take a look at that, right? So that's part of our study session tomorrow, and then depending on how that conversation goes, we're going to have some follow-up for that. So I think that one and the parks expulsion are probably the two where this kind of process needs to be reviewed.
Thank you.
So we can take up the question of council guidance to staff around that particular issue after we're done with this ordinance discussion. Any other discussion? Okay. Roll call, please. Alyssa?
Nauer?
I'm going to have to say no.
Dale?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
And so we want to take up Councillor Duquesne's question and to determine if there is guidance for staff. What I heard you say, Councillor Duquesne, is that we would direct staff to look at the various elements that can be appealed through this administrative appeal process to make sure that that appeal process is understood and is accessible to people across the community, but particularly to our unhoused residents. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. We don't need a formal motion necessarily on this, but is that the will of the body?
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kaplan?
Yes, can we also direct staff to communicate with the judge who wasn't here today that we'd like him to include any appeals in his regular monthly report, not a new report, just could be the same one.
Yeah, certainly, and I did give him an FYI that this was on the agenda, so he knows it's coming.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. So we are now to the second reading of ORD 3245, an ordinance terminating specified commission and reestablishing AMC Chapter 2.13 to create advisory committees.
We're going to have a lawyer switch out here.
Yes,
for
I see
second.
that.
Thank you, Carmel.
All right, thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Legal chairs.
Another city with another matter that need to be addressed.
Doug, can you turn on your microphone for us? Thank you.
No one else need to hear that, I guess. Okay, so we're here at the committees. Hopefully this will be the final one. We went through the first one, and now we're at the, this is 213, and let's see here. So as I pointed out in the council communication, the only things that I really did to change it from the first reading was to format the entire ordinance. It was pointed out to me that there was a whole number of things that were wrong with the formats, and I guess I just hadn't looked at that. So that's been corrected. I moved the definition of ex officio member in the CPAP section to section I in the purpose section, that just would then have an overarching definition of what an ex officio member was of the committees. So that would just handle all that. And then I noticed that in the language, and it was pointed out in the language, and I'll go over those, and I will, after I'm done here, I will just say, read out the entire section that this deals with. But I fixed the language in the Public Arts Advisory Committee. It just didn't, I don't know where it came from, probably some kind of translation from PDF to, or something, I'm not sure, but, so I fixed that. So it says instead, adheres to and aligns in effort to consistent with the role of the State of Oregon Arts Commission. And that was what was intended. So with that said, on page 3 of 8 of the ordinance that you have before you, 3245, it is 213.005 purpose, section I. It says, ex officio members, the term, quote, ex officio members, close quote, refers only to city staff and council members, including council liaisons to any committee. That is that one section change. And then the next section change is at page 5 of 8 on ordinance of 3245, and that's Public Arts Advisory Committee, PAAC. And I'll just start at the very beginning of that one section. It says, a Public Arts Advisory Committee, PAAC, is established by the City Council. Members should have expertise or interest in topics including but not limited to art, arts organizations, education, and structural and landscape architecture. The PAAC shall adhere to and align its efforts consistent with the role of the State of Oregon Arts Commission, and shall be responsible for assisting the city in the following, and then nothing's changed after that. And that is the only changes that I made for you. If you, in your packet, I have the original that you were looking at earlier, so if you wanted to look, you can see those. I can point those out, but I think hopefully I've explained everything for you.
Great. Questions? Okay, Alyssa, has anyone signed up to speak to us this evening? No, okay. The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Bloom?
Thank you. I move to adopt ordinance number 3245 as revised and stated, an ordinance terminating specified commissions, renaming the Municipal Audit Commission to the Municipal Audit Committee, and reestablishing AMC Chapter 2.13 to create City Council and Management Advisory Committees.
Is there a second? Would you care to speak to your motion?
No, thanks for cleaning that up. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think Councillor Hanson had the second.
Sure. No discussion. Thank you.
I know we've had a lot of discussion, but is there any other discussion? This one's been a long time coming. Okay, roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Nauer,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We are now to second reading of ORD 3248, an ordinance to establish and clarify the structure and governance of the Parks and Recreation Department.
All right, thank you again. So this one, again, the council gave me instructions on what they wanted to see. And so there were a number of changes, and if you've gone through those through your council packet, I'll just list them out as bullet items, and then I'll get to reading them back to you properly so that we finish this. So the names of the Park and Recreation Department has changed to the Ashland, in the original document that I gave you, when I say the name was, or is, it was Parks and Recreation Department, but we've changed that to the Ashland Parks and Recreation Department. It is not referenced with its full name. Then if it's not referenced with its full name, then the Ashland Parks and Recreation Department is simply referred to as department in the ordinance throughout. The next bulleted item, the Parks Commission and Recreation Commission, is introduced and formally referred to in 2.28.600, Ashland Park and Recreation Department creation, as the Parks and Recreation Commission. But as you recall, they were not happy with that name. They wanted to be referenced as the Parks Commission. So that's what I've referenced them to. And it doesn't make any changes to the ordinance or the material parts of the ordinance. So that's so throughout the document, you'll see it as listed as Parks Commission after it was first introduced as the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission. The next bulleted item is the Office of the Ashland Parks and Recreation Department Director is so named and shortened to the Department Director thereafter, unless the office is referenced in a section title. And under 2.28.630, accountability and supervisory structure, Section D, which is entitled Clarification of Authority, I have changed this section to the following as highlighted, and it's just it's on page 3 of 7 of the, and I'll get to that when we do it. But it says if differences arise related to the respective authority of the department director and the city manager over operational or administrative compliance matters, such issues shall be discussed between the Parks Commission chair and the city manager to ensure alignment and understanding. I can't remember what it was before, but I think this was a Parks Commission recommendation, and that made sense to me. It should be between the chair and the city manager if there are some differences between operations and if they had some questions. I think it was the city council or the mayor, and I'm not sure that would have been all that helpful as opposed to having a difference with the city manager. Then, again, doesn't change anything substantively in the sense of changing the intent of the ordinance, but it just makes it, I think, better operationally. And then the final bulleted item is 2.28.640, hiring and termination of the Ashland Parks and Recreation Department Director. Section B, termination process, I removed there used to be number 3, a final decision, and moved it and incorporated it in with section 2, and then as modified. And I'll go ahead since it's a longer section. I don't want to reread it. I'm just going to read it to you when I get to it. Okay. So page 3. So on page 3 of ordinance number 3248, your Parks and Recreation Department, down at the bottom of the page is D, clarification of authority. It just says this, that if differences arise related to the respective authority of the department director and the city manager over operational or administrative compliance matters, such issues shall first be discussed between the Parks Commission chair and the city manager to ensure alignment and understanding. If clarification is still required, the matter shall be referred to the mayor and Parks Commission chair for further discussion. Ultimately, the city council as a final authority will resolve any remaining uncertainty or confusion with guidance from city's legal department as necessary to ensure compliance with the city charter and municipal policies. And that's the only change to that section. The next section, which I'll read to you, is on page, it starts on page 4 of 7, which is section 2.28.640, hiring and termination of the Ashland Parks and Recreation Department Director. Everything from section A down to everything in A stays the same, but section B has been changed. So I'm going to read that section out in its entirety as required under the charter, okay? Section 2.28640B, termination process. 1, commission role in termination. The Park Commission retains the primary authority to recommend the termination of the department director based on its assessment of performance and alignment with the strategic vision and policies of the commission, period. Number 2, counsel and legal review. A, presumption of correctness. A termination recommendation made by the majority of the Park Commission shall be presumed valid and in the best interest of the city. B, council override standards. The city council is in consultation with the city attorney may override the Park Commission's recommendation if clear and convincing evidence demonstrates that the recommendation is not supported by sufficient cause or if legal, operational, or compliance risk necessitates termination. C, process and confidentiality. All discussions and materials related to the termination shall remain confidential and compliant with Oregon's Public Records and Executive Sessions Law, ORS 192.345, subsection 12. Next bullet item, executive session discussions must remain within the bounds of confidentiality to avoid violations of state law. Next bullet point, any final decision to modify or terminate the department director's employment shall be made in a public meeting in compliance with applicable state and local laws. The decision shall be made by or under the authority of the city council, ensuring transparency and accountability while maintaining adherence to confidentiality requirements throughout the process, period. Everything after that is the same. Nothing has been changed. So that section, really what was changed was to avoid trying to anticipate what kind of executive session you might have or what might be the decisions of the group or non-decisions. Let's just leave it to what the state law requires and let the next attorney advise you as you walk through that thing, walk through an executive session or what have you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.
Are there questions? Councilor Hanson?
Thanks, Mayor. So I have a question. This is second reading, and we're advancing this under the suggested actions, motions, and or options down at the bottom. It just says that we should schedule a second reading. I believe
I
believe that's a typo.
Yeah.
So we're in the adoption phase. I just
Yes.
wanted to go ahead and clarify that.
I didn't write out a motion for you, sorry.
Great. I'm prepared to make a motion when we're ready.
You have a question?
No, I was just going to make sure to say as revised and stated so we don't get tripped up on the last one.
Yes. Doug, under the third bullet that you just read, where it says the decision shall be made by or under the authority of the city council, do I read it correctly that if the Parks Commission decided to terminate this person in a public meeting, that would be under the authority of the city council.
Yes,
That's how I read that.
yes, it
Those
is.
are the two options. Okay,
Right.
I just
You
wanted to
can-
clarify that I understood that correctly. Okay, great. Any other questions? We have one.
And the
oh, go
reason
ahead.
for that is because ultimately that's the issue. The city, the employees work for the city.
Right.
They are city employees. So it is your authority.
But it's
to
delegated
terminate,
in that moment to
That's
the
correct.
Parks Commission.
That's
The
correct.
Park Commission. Okay, we have one person who has signed up to talk to us about this ordinance this evening, Mike Gardner. And Mike, will 3 minutes suffice? Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, Council, Doug, staff. I just wanted to make sure that everything that Doug is covering tonight came in front of you and was explained, because these are requests that came from the Park Commission as we reviewed the ordinance. I'm going to pose this as a question. You can tell me if I'm out of line to Doug, because there was another item that we had brought to your attention.
So the way to do that is to simply address the council with that, and if any counselor wants to ask the question of our legal
Okay.
counsel, we will.
So there was a fourth item that was 2.28650D. It was regarding the language of all financial matters and replacing it with contractual and budget. And I didn't see that addressed. So I guess I'm asking if the council saw that, if that's something that you want to ask the city attorney about. Once again, this is just the process that the commission went through to try to vet the ordinance to support what I think would be best for the citizens of Ashland and for the city as a whole. So that's my question, actually. I don't really have anything else to say other than I appreciate you going through this laborious process and giving us the commission the opportunity to speak and be part of the process.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilors, do we have any questions of Mr. McGarry?
Sure.
Councilor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Doug, you heard that. Can you provide any context or insight to that?
What I've attempted to do is to do everything that we're typically doing right now. So if there's any real change from process or authority, everything normally happens in compliance. It's when it doesn't happen, then that's the problem. So what I've done here is to put things in the order. So the department shall coordinate all financial activities, including budgeting and reporting, but with the city finance director and the city manager. So that's exactly what they would probably be doing anyway, and that's what we're putting in the ordinance form. And all financial transactions, appropriations, and contracts must comply with city financial management policies and protocols. Again, it happens all the time, but when it doesn't, and now the question comes up, well, why didn't you do it that way? Well, it's because this is the way we've always done it, is not a very good answer when you need to have the proper authority. So I can't remember specifically which one it was, but if I didn't change something, it was probably because it was just one more added kind of if it started to change or could be changing how things are interpreted when they're not interpreted that way now, then I said, let's not change anything.
So
there was a purposeful reason for not changing some of these, and I remember, and I don't have the specifics in front of me what Parks was doing, but it was one of, and I don't want to say it was pedantic, it was kind of into the details, which is kind of what happened on the termination part. It got too far into details, and I said, no, we can't, I don't want to change it at that point. And so those were decisions I made.
Not a problem. I appreciate it. As long as it's purposeful, then
it was purposeful.
It's good.
Okay. Any final questions of staff? Okay, the floor is open for a question. Councilor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you. In reading Mr. Gardner's email back from December 15th, it appears that the question is in regards to setting budget. And I don't recall specific language that the original ordinance had for first reading, but I was just curious if there's any substantial change in this D, financial coordination, that you made. Do you have any record of that, Doug?
There's no, well, there's no change since the first reading. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
But whether there may have been a previous version, way back when, and it made adjustments, I know that I'm trying to remember, and I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Fair enough. We're just getting this now, and I don't see the exact change either. So I appreciate the opportunity to look at it a little bit further, but I don't have any more questions right now, I guess.
It's, in the last sentence, it says the city council shall maintain authority over approval of all financial matters related to Ashland Parks and Recreation Department. And they wanted to, and the Parks was saying, well, it should only be about contracts and more detail. And that's not really ultimately the authority of what goes on in budget, what they're given budgets, or what they're done with procurements or contracts are all regulated by state law, procurement laws.
Okay.
And again, if I started getting into, well, you're not allowed to do this or you're allowed to do that, then it just starts to get into, well, what if, now we start arguing over that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
No, that's right. It was intentional.
Well, and just to follow up, by my read of that email, the concerns in that email was really around the commission's role in budget making.
Yeah.
And now that with the department, I just want to check my understanding. What we are assuming is that the budget that is brought to the finance department from the department is going to be a budget that has been developed with the park commission, or in some collaboration with the park commission, that we're not anticipating that a department head is going to make a unilateral decision about what should be in the budget, but they will be working in collaboration with their commission, and then they will bring the proposed budget into this process like the other departments. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's approved, or that's correct. So the department director works with APRC for them to approve his suggested budget. Then the department director brings it to me to integrate during the budget cycle. And depending on how that goes, it's brought forward to council and then Citizens Budget Committee, and then it moves from there, ultimately being adopted by council as the final say.
And so this section is really that overarching element that says that the financial responsibility still sits with the city. It's a part of that whole stitching together through here, where we're making it clear where those authorities at the end of the day lay. That's correct, right? We're trying to keep that bigger umbrella terminology around the financial elements.
The larger umbrella, thank you, and that's exactly right.
Okay.
You can see if we started getting into the details where now we start getting into differences, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to do what we've always been doing, which is a good thing to do, until it doesn't happen, and then that's a bad thing.
Okay, any other questions? The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Hansen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to approve second reading of Ordinance 3248, an ordinance to establish and clarify the structure of governance of the Parks and Recreation Department as read by City Attorney.
Second.
Councillor Hansen.
Yeah, this has been a long time making with collaboration between the mayor and the commission chair and the Parks Commission. It may appear to be just housekeeping at first glance, but really this is the bringing together of these two very unique bodies in very harmonious relations moving forward. And we have a lot of things to accomplish as a city together, and I believe that this collaboration really lays a good foundation. So I'd like to thank staff and the Parks Commission for all of their work, and the mayor and Commissioner Councilor Hyatt for your work previously in getting us this far.
Who had the second?
That was me.
That was you, right? Councilor Bloom.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. A further discussion? Okay. Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
Great, thank you. As a quick follow-up, this has been quite a process, and I think it's a process that has actually gone back decades, as these two elected bodies have worked well together over the years, but have continually worked to negotiate what is that relationship, and putting it into this format, and in the near future, hopefully eliminating the trail of MOUs that was very confusing and difficult to navigate is an important part. Of course, it does feel like it's housekeeping and it's maybe boring government, as it should be, but getting these agreements in place and these understandings in place before we have any questions is really important. And so thank you, everyone, for your hard work, and we will be bringing those other questions.
I brought this up. Yeah.
They're checking on it. So thank you all for your hard work on that. Thank you, Doug, for moving through that. And also thank you to the Park Commission for their hard work and their collaboration in this process. We are going to take a 7-minute break, and we're going to figure out the sound issue here. We will be back at 7:40 to pick up with our agenda.
Is it totally done? Yes, it's just, you can't charge it.
their seats, please? I call the meeting back to order. We are now at second reading. We are now at second reading of ORD 3254, an ordinance amending AMC Title IX, Health and Sanitation, creating Chapter 9.45, Carbon Pollution Impact Fee, and establishing standards for a carbon pollution impact fee for new residential structures in the city of Ashland. As we start into this agenda item, while I am not required to declare a non-conflict of interest, I do want to speak to some of the comments that were made this evening about my professional life. My organization does work to address the existential threat of climate change, which the International Panel on Climate Change has established for many years is real, and that we are experiencing already on the ground here in Ashland. However, our work at the GEOS Institute, the vast majority of it is in the southeastern United States. It's in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. We do not have work in Oregon, and we certainly don't have work at this moment in Ashland that has anything to do with our climate work. And so I wanted to address that because any decision that this council makes related to climate change, it does not have an impact on me financially. If we were to ever end up in a circumstance where it did, I would absolutely declare that conflict immediately, and I would recuse myself. So I wanted to address those statements before we get moving into this conversation. Chad Woodward is here to answer any questions from the staff, and we'll go ahead and queue up the conversation now. Sabrina?
So this is the second reading of the ordinance establishing the carbon pollution impact fee. There has been no substantive changes with this, and so tonight we're happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Great. We have a number of people who have signed up this evening to speak, nearly 40. And so what we are going to do is we are going to move through those. Each person will have 1 minute at the microphone or by Zoom. I understand we have 4 people who are here by Zoom. Please double check and let me know if they're here. So before we move into the testimony this evening, I wanted to just speak to the intensity of feeling in the room this evening. And that when we are in a space like this and we are offering testimony, one of the most important things that we can do as a citizenry is to hold the space for that public conversation. And that means being respectful of all viewpoints that are brought before us this evening and being respectful of other people who are here in terms of remembering that this is a quiet space. Unless you have the microphone, there's to be no talking. There are also, we don't allow cheering or making noises in response to what somebody says. That being said, there is something that the council and I allow, and that helps us to know what is the feeling of people in the room. And that is that if you are sitting in this, in the audience this evening, and somebody at the microphone says something that you agree with, it is okay for you to do this. Okay, not big hand waving, not carrying it on, but just doing this because we can see all of you, and that tells us what is the temperature of the people. What have they come here to talk to us about this evening? It also makes it easier to get through when you only have 1 minute at the microphone. So please, when I call your name, come up, and I'll announce 4 people in line so that people can come up and get in line behind the microphone. And again, if you are in support, you can do this, but there is no hand motion if you disagree. Remember, we are here to provide a welcoming space for all voices who have come to speak to the council this evening. So with that, we will get started. I would like to go ahead and start with the folks who are called in on Zoom. Okay, let me double check the names I have. I have 4 of these people on my list.
One person's for another item. 1 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 person's for
One person's for another item. Okay, great. So we will start with Alan Journet and then Ann Pernick. Alan, go ahead. Each of you has 1 minute, remember? You may not be able to hear the chimes, so I will signal you here when Alyssa gives us the 10-second chime. Go ahead.
Mayor Graham and members of the Ashland City Council, my name is Alan Journet. I'm here before you as co-facilitator of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now in support of this ordinance. I will keep this short and refer council members to the written testimony I submitted after the first reading and also the testimony I submitted after reviewing the campaign by the Northwest Coalition for Energy Choices entitled, "A Natural Gas Tax Will Be Harmful to Ashland Residents." In relation to this document from the Northwest Gas Coalition Front Group, I'd just like to express my personal disappointment that the campaign against Ordinance 3254 is based on a continuation of the misinformation campaign that the gas utilities have perpetrated for years. Discussions about these issues would be more productive if the utilities did not wage such campaigns. I close by again urging support for 3254. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ann Pernick, followed by Brian Soul.
Hello, Mayor Graham, council, and staff. I'm Ann Pernick, and I work with Safe Cities at Stand.Earth. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of the carbon pollution impact fee. The pollution fee will incentivize newly constructed homes to be built with electric appliances by charging a fee for those who choose to install gas appliances. This means healthier, safer, more efficient homes, increased affordability, and less harmful climate pollution. It's an important policy in and of itself, and also a great first step in protecting the community and the planet through new building policies. We encourage council to direct staff to report on the revenue generated by the carbon pollution impact fee and ensure that revenue be directed to the conservation budget in order to advance climate justice programs that benefit frontline communities. Safe Cities applauds the advocacy of Road Valley Youth over the last 2 years. We look forward to supporting the passage of all the measures that they have recommended. We appreciate the leadership of staff and council on this issue. We look forward to working with many cities across the state to pass similar policies. We urge a yes vote on the second reading for the climate pollution impact fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Soul, followed by Eli Spivak.
Hello, thank you, Council. I'm Brian Soul, Chair of Ashland CPAC. I've lived in Ashland since 1988, and we have raised 3 kids here. Thank you for your unanimous support of this ordinance at its first reading, January 18. I ask you to reaffirm your unanimous support tonight. RCAT Youth, CPAC, city staff, council, city legal staff, and other Ashland citizens have worked very hard on this for nearly 2 years. This ordinance is a product of careful thought and deliberation, weighing of pros and cons, studying different options, and consideration of legal risk. CPAC unanimously supports this ordinance. In written testimony given to the city and in oral testimony at 2 widely publicized public hearings and in multiple CPAC and council meetings, the citizenry of Ashland has spoken overwhelmingly in favor. Ashland realizes that we must make progress on addressing climate issues. Starting to make progress on this difficult issue starts here at home. This ordinance will in the long run lead to financial savings for new homeowners. Jackson County Housing Authority has found this to be true. They have been building all electric homes for 10 plus years.
Mr. Soul, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eli Spivak.
Thank you, Mayor Graham and City Council. My name is Eli Spivak. I'm a home builder in Portland, Oregon, where I specialize in co-housing projects and developments for first-time home buyers, often with the Community Land Trust. The market shifted dramatically over the past decade. The past 50-plus homes I've built have all been electric. Before that, though, I did build with gas, and I feel bad sometimes for those buyers. They don't have cooling, they have gas ranges that pollute their homes, and their gas bills are climbing faster than electricity. I'm not on my own doing this. Last year, I toured 5 different developments by 4 different developers. All but one were 100% electric already. In more recent tour of middle housing, of which we built 1,400 units in the past 3 years in Portland, every single one was all electric already. It's just naturally cheaper to build that way. It's more efficient and buyers appreciate it. I can't vouch for more expensive homes for more affluent buyers. I suspect those oftentimes do still come with gas. If you levy this fee, which I think you should, then those expensive homes will be a little bit more expensive to cover the real cost, at least a portion of it, and affordable homes will still be affordable because they're already electric. That's the way the trend is going. Thank you for passing this ordinance. I hope you get a second reading approved.
Thank you. Our first in-room speaker will be Kiera Ritiz, followed by Maroon Aguero, Piper Banks, and Princess Franks. Go ahead. Please say your name and what city you live in, and then you have 1 minute. You'll get a chime at 10 seconds. When you have 10 seconds left, at which point, please finish your sentence and then move along so the next person can come. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Kiera Ortiz, and I live in Ashland. I wanted to address some misinformation that has been spread regarding the carbon pollution impact fee. The fee only applies to those who choose to build with gas. If you choose to install 100% electric appliances, there is no fee. This policy helps make housing more affordable by encouraging the most cost-effective construction methods. New all-electric homes cost $1,600 less to build and save residents hundreds on annual utility bills, thanks to highly efficient electric appliances that dramatically reduce emissions. Homeowners save about $390 annually on utility bills thanks to more efficient electric appliances. Relying on efficient electric equipment protects ratepayers from frequent rate increases from Avista, who have raised rates by 50% over the last 5 years and is threatening another rate increase this year. When the power goes out, most gas appliances won't work either, as even though it uses gas for heating, it relies on electricity for ignition, meaning the electronic components that spark the flame to light the burner won't function without power. Everyone in Ashland deserves clean air inside their homes and affordable energy. This policy incentivizes developers of new residential buildings to install safe, efficient electric appliances. Thank you.
Thank you. Maroon Aguero.
Hello, my name is Maroon Aguero, and I'm giving testimony in behalf of Mark Knox. Y'all know the name. My name is Mark Knox, and I'm very excited to encourage the council to pass this pollution impact fee on new residential construction. I've been an Ashland city planner and a land use consultant and now a developer. As a developer, I've been told my work has helped lead the building industry across the Pacific Northwest with innovative construction techniques focused on climate consciousness development. Most recently, we started a 100% exclude natural gas within the development or upsell because the advantages of electric only within the Garden Cottages of Laurel Street, Kestrel Park Cottages, and within the Beach Creek subdivision. We can no longer justify prolonging the use of gas in new construction when there are more viable, sustainable, cost-effective, and healthier alternatives ready. A recent analysis from a nonpartisan think tank, RMI, demonstrated that all electric residential construction is cheaper in Oregon. This is especially true. Oregon House Bill 2021 requires utilities to provide 100% renewable energy. Our grid, either way, is going to be increasingly powered by renewables. The longer we wait to transition, the more expensive it's going to be. Please pass the carbon pollution impact.
Thank you. The next speaker is Piper Banks, followed by Princess Franks, and then Leah Samuelson and Nora Doyle.
Good evening. My name is Piper Banks, and I'm an Ashland resident. It has been a long 2 years of nonstop work, and I'm thrilled to finally be taking this step towards Ashland meeting its climate goals. This policy is such an important first step in addressing the climate crisis both locally and beyond. The positive impact this ordinance will have on our community's health, safety, and equity is so powerful. While Avista continues to raise its rates on gas, electric appliances become more reliable and affordable. All affordable housing developers in Ashland already build 100% electric from the start because it is cheaper and safer. Everyone deserves clean air. This pollution fee is straightforward, common sense step towards Ashland meeting its climate goals. Don't allow yourselves to be fooled by the misinformation orchestrated against this policy and therefore our planet. Hold true to your promises and fight for my future. Pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Princess Franks.
Hi, Mayor Graham and City Council.
Can you get in a little pull that microphone a little closer to you? Thank you.
Okay.
That helps us hear you. Go ahead.
That's great.
You'll
Okay.
start again.
Hello. My name is Princess Franks, and I'm an Ashland resident. I'm a mom of two and a real estate agent. I strongly support the passing of the carbon pollution impact fee. As I work with clients to find their dream home, there are concerns about increasing intensity of the extreme weather, smoke, and fire risk. Residents want their homes to be a safe haven in the midst of fire season. Children who grow up in homes with gas stoves are 42% more likely of the risk of asthma. Ductless heat pumps offer both heating and cooling and are 3 to 4 more efficient than traditional gas heating, saving residents about $400 annually in utility bills. Building 100% electric upfront is cheaper for developers, and local developers like Townmakers LLC, KDA Homes, and Housing Authority of Jackson County are already leading the way. My kids are growing up with the impacts of climate change in our valley, and they deserve a future where they can thrive. So please pass the carbon pollution impact fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah Samuelson, followed by Norma Doyle, Susie Garcia, and Caleb Haringa. Nora Doyle.
Hi, Council. My name is Nora Doyle, and I'm an active member of the Rogue Climate Action Team. Over the past 2 years, we have put in hundreds of hours not only working within our organization to get where we are, but by organizing and connecting with our community about their climate anxieties. The overwhelming truth that we have heard repeatedly over these 2 years is that people want action. Tonight, we present you with a petition of over 1,100 signatures from people urging you to pass this policy and the rest of the climate and clean air policy package, as well as continue to take bold climate action. To take action that meets the people's desire for change and that will inspire cities throughout the state. We urge you to take action for clean air and a livable future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's written testimony, so please roll it up and then present it to Alyssa. Susie Garcia.
Hi, my name is Susie Garcia, and I am the Rogue Valley Coordinator at Rogue Climate. While I do live in Ashland, today I'm reading the testimony on behalf of Senator Jeff Golden, who could not be here tonight as he is working hard on behalf of our communities in Salem. Mayor Graham, members of the council, as the need to expedite the transition away from fossil fuels has become clear and compelling, I urge your support for the measure of establishing a fee on the inclusion of gas-fired appliances in new construction. Our awareness of the damaging impacts of methane, not so much in its combustion, which is not entirely benign, but in the problematic and inevitable escape of the unburned gas, has dramatically increased. Delaying measures like this brings into question our seriousness and sense of urgency about the transition to clean energy. In the context of this growing awareness, it's fair to see this is a moderate and even mild proposal. The national dialogue includes proposals to require removal of gas appliances from homes and businesses by specific future date. This proposal is not that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caleb Haringa, followed by Asa Oaks, Jess Grady Benson, and Shane Hayes.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Caleb Haringa. I'm an Ashland resident. I'm urging you very strongly to pass the pollution fee. The fight against climate change and the transition to clean energy is a complicated thing, but the first step is actually quite simple. When you're in a hole, quit digging. And the pollution fee is a really important first step to incentivize builders to build with the most efficient and cleanest options available for powering buildings. Heat pumps, as has been mentioned, are 3 to 5 times more efficient than a gas furnace typically. And the future residents of Ashland are going to be having lower energy bills the more and more we build with these things. This is the future, and we need to not be tethered to the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Asa Oaks.
Mayor Graham and members of the City Council, my name is Asa Oaks and I am a junior at Crater High School. I am here to speak in support of the carbon pollution impact fee. Right now, the people of Ashland are quite literally paying the price for the City Council's inaction. Avista has raised their rates by over 51% since 2020. The Northwestern Coalition for Energy Choice is a gas industry front group. They hired Loose Research to make automatic calls to citizens in the Rogue Valley. The registered agent for this group is Northwestern Gas Association Executive Director Dan Kirshner. They have the same address as Avista through the Oregon Business Registry, and in 2023, they spent $1 million on a false campaign to shut down climate action in Eugene. I urge City Council not to be manipulated by gas executives and instead to listen to the needs of their citizens. Thank you for your time and your vote.
Thank you. Jess Grady Benson, followed by Shane Hayes, Aaron O'Keely Muck, and Laura Lawrence.
Mayor Graham and members of the council, my name is Jess Grady Benson. I'm the organizing director at Rogue Climate. After 2 years of extensive public process, community members have demonstrated overwhelming support for the carbon pollution impact fee. Hundreds of testimonies, 1,100 petition signatures, and showing up to dozens of city meetings. This is a well thought out and impactful first step for the city to improve indoor air quality, increase energy affordability, and begin meeting climate goals. You may hear false information tonight stirred up in the final hour by the gas industry front group, Northwest Coalition for Energy Choice, whose secretary is the Director of Government Relations for Avista. This is an old tactic to block climate policy and protect their bottom line while they continue to raise rates at the expense of community members. Please see through this misinformation. Electric appliances like heat pumps use 3 to 4 times less energy than gas appliances, which saves residents about $400 annually on utility bills. Building new homes with electric appliances is $1,600 cheaper than building with gas. Please pass the carbon pollution impact fee, direct city staff to report on the status of this program, and ensure the revenue is directed to support energy efficiency upgrades for low-income households.
Thank you.
This is a great first step. Thank you.
Shane Hayes.
Hi. I'm back. I'm here to thank you for all of your careful consideration of this issue and listening to a wide range of stakeholders, including our city's youth. I've been able to witness their advocacy for the future they will inherit that we currently borrow from them, and it's a testament to their leadership that this new policy is on the council floor for a final vote tonight. I have heard that misinformation has been circulating in our community about this new policy, framing it as a gas ban or an attack on our individual freedoms. To be clear, this new policy is not a ban, but rather a fee for installing gas appliances in new homes. On the contrary, I see this policy as an essential step to ensure that the free market continues to work as intended and protect our ability to choose the products and services that best meet our needs. This is done by correcting a distortion in the true price of burning natural gas, which has currently been unaccounted for in our market economy. To those in the audience who oppose this policy for this reason, I suspect our values as members of this community and this beautiful country we live in are more similar than we think. As climate activists, we stand before you today to protect our freedoms by making energy choice an even playing field. Thank you.
Erin Okili-Muck, followed by Laura Lawrence, Charlie Zimmerman, and Sophia Shibe. I'll have to ask how I say that. Hopefully you know who you are. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Erin O'Kelly-Muck, and I've lived in Ashland for 24 years. First, I want to thank you all for the time and energy you put toward the betterment of our community. Tonight, I am speaking solely as a resident of Ashland. I spend a lot of time thinking about the future. I'm proud our city has a climate plan and a vision to achieve by 2050. A vision to be a resilient community with zero net emissions, to embrace equity, to protect ecosystems, and create opportunities for future generations. The pollution fee is an important step in the right direction. It's a step to protect this place we all love for future generations. Thanks to the City of Ashland staff, CPAC, and to Rogue Climate's Ashland Youth for Electrification, you have tenaciously kept this ordinance a focal point of your work and have my deep gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Lawrence.
Good evening. My name is Laura Lawrence, and I live in Ashland. I want to dispute the claim that gas is more affordable than electricity. Last year, my all-electric house, built in 2014, incurred electricity charges totaling $384 for the whole year. That's $32 a month. These charges covered heating, cooling, all appliances, cooking, lights, car charging, etc., for a 2,000 square foot house, plus HVAC for the attached 500 square foot ADU rental. Numbers don't lie, and I don't either. Over many decades, I've experienced how technological advances have increased exponentially economical efficiency while decreasing old drawbacks formerly associated with some electrical appliances such as cooktops. I can't imagine ever even considering going back to so-called natural gas. Thank you, and for doing the right thing.
Thank you. Charlie Zimmerman, followed by Sophia Shibe, Stella Sigalov, and Timothy Dolan.
Hello, my name is Charlie Zimmerman. When houses are built with natural gas, they're not necessarily built to withstand the energy draw of all electric. This requires these systems to be upgraded, which is extremely expensive for the homeowners. And when it comes to appliances, either they need to be replaced before their natural lifespan, which is not only expensive but extremely wasteful, or if they are kept until the natural lifespan of the product, they must continue to pay user fees to the natural gas companies regardless of how much natural gas they're continuing to use, and they must experience the consequences of having a natural gas household, including the fact that natural gas is very flammable and increases the risk of fire, which puts our entire community at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia?
Schnibby.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia Schnibby, and I'm a senior at South Medford High School. I'm here to urge the council to pass the carbon pollution impact fee. There has been some debate about whether the fee will hurt low-income communities. That is false. This fee will save money for developers and will not hurt anyone. The opinions of people from gas industry front groups like Northwest Energy Choice, who don't even live in or near Ashland and don't care about the climate, only about their profit, shouldn't matter more than the overwhelming amount of people who live here and have families here and want this ordinance passed. The climate crisis does not wait. The weather is only getting scarier, and it's only going to become worse if we don't take these small steps as soon as we can. We need to finally start caring about the youth and the future generations who will be inheriting the crisis and show our support in ways like passing the carbon pollution impact fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Stella Sigalov, followed by Timothy Dolan, Aidan Larkham, and Diane Ware.
Hi, my name is Stella, and I'm a resident of Medford, and I am urging you to please pass the pollution fee. I also urge you to ensure that any revenue from the fee be placed into energy efficiency programs that will help low-income families. This is the right decision for both developers and homeowners alike. Fossil fuel companies like Avista may try to convince you otherwise using disinformation, but the facts are these. Avista has raised its rates over 50% since 2020, and electricity is the cheaper, more sustainable option. It's time for Ashland leadership to make the right decision, keep its promises to its citizens, and take the initiative on climate action. Please make the decision to vote in favor of the people and the planet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Timothy Dolan? Timothy Dolan. Okay, Aidan Larkham.
Hello. Wow, it's distorted. As we approach the final vote on this ordinance, I, along with the rest of the Road Climate Action team, urge you all to vote yes on this policy. This policy is the first of, I hope, many that will transform Ashland and eventually the whole Rogue Valley into a community with clean air and more ethical treatment of the environment. Vista is trying to tell you that electrification is a bad idea, but it really isn't. It's cheap, affordable, ethical, and will be a helpful push to help Ashland and Southern Oregon meet its future climate goals. Everyone wants clean air, regardless of what you think of politically. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Ware, followed by Flavia Franco, Jackson Bangs, and Steve Vincent.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diane Ware, and I live in Medford, and I'm here representing the Justice and Peace team of the Medford Congregational United Church of Christ. And we've been supporting the Road Climate Youth since 2013 and following the great work they've been doing in our valley. And we are urging this group to follow the leadership of Rogue Valley youth who've been organizing for climate justice and clean air for over 2 years on this project to pass the carbon pollution impact fee. Avista and the gas industry continue to use ratepayer money to fund lobbyists to stop climate policy like this pollution fee while spreading disinformation to protect their bottom line. We know that building homes 100% electric is cheaper, safer, healthier, and essential to meet our climate goals. This matters
Thank you.
to our church because
Thank you, ma'am.
all people deserve
Thank
clean
you.
air and a
Thank
livable
you.
future.
Thank you for your time and your testimony. Flavia Franco?
Hello, Council. My name is Flavia Franco, and I'm an Ashland resident. I stand with Ashland youth who are asking us to pass this ordinance. Cities and states are trying to encourage our alternatives to fossil fuels to power homes. I would like the City of Ashland to join Ashland youth and step into the future. And please have staff report on the fees collected and that those funds should go to address climate justice needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackson Bangs, followed by Steve Vincent, Karen Caldwell, and Albert Nicholson.
Hello, Mayor Graham, City Council. My name is Jackson Bangs. I'm from Medford, Oregon. It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon him not understanding it. And that is a quote from Upton Sinclair. Pass the Clean Air and Policy Package because it incentivizes the building of clean and efficient homes with both safe and efficient electric appliances. This will also help improve public health and increase energy efficiency and affordability, once again, because I urge the council to follow the leaders of the Rogue Valley Youth and pass the carbon pollution impact fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Vincent?
Yes, Mayor and Council Member Steve Vincent, representing Avista Utilities. I did submit some testimony.
Hold on just a second. There'll be none of that. Would you like to start over?
Sure.
Thanks.
Steve Vincent, representing Avista Utilities. And I have some prepared comments. I'll just say that I've heard a number of things that are factually in error. Be happy to sit down and address each one of those. I don't know if people are misinformed or if it's a fabrication, but I'll just say that there are consequences in the adoption of the carbon impact fee that we could discuss at length. I would encourage you to vote no on the ordinance at this time and then invite a conversation on how we can look at decarbonization of the community mutually. And there are a number of strategies toward that. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Karen Caldwell?
My name is Karen Caldwell. I live in Ashland. Last Sunday morning, the electricity went off in North Ashland, where I live. I have a gas furnace, and the heat also went off. The little thermostat and the fans, you see, all run on electricity. So, no electricity, no heat. My experience is clearly evidence that Avista's claim that gas customers can continue to cook and heat their homes when their power is out is not true. My family is hoping to buy as soon as possible an electric furnace, which we will do whenever we are able to. Please vote yes for the ordinance and all of its features. Thank you.
Thank you. Albert Nicholson, followed by Mark Culp, Rob Bates, and Brian O'Geary.
Hi, I'm Albert Nicholson. I disapprove of this ordinance. I'm in that field of construction. And yes, it might cost the homeowners a little bit more to build a house with gas. In the long run, it is cheaper. My mother-in-law just recently put in an electric hot water heater. It has gone up $300 to $200 varying a month more than the gas she previously had. And so now she's looking to get the thing repiped back to gas. Gas is the only cheapest, in my opinion. Electricity, we don't even have the power grid for this yet. And you guys want to rush the whole city going into this. How are you guys going to afford that? Especially with this they're going to increase the electricity by 8% on our bills this year. Next year, it's going to be another 8. Since I moved here, it's been up 50%. I haven't seen that in gas. So all this info is great, but you got to look in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Bates.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rob Bates. I live in Gresham, Oregon. I'm the business agent for a building trades union. I'm here to represent my members, many of whom live in the area. The goal on this essentially is to eliminate natural gas as a power option. When there's a single provider of power for any given area, they can set the price however they want. The cost impact may not be obvious at first. It will come later when they can charge whatever they want because they're the only option. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Bates, followed by Brian O'Geary, Brad Archuleta, and Paul Mozina.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm a resident of Southern Oregon. Our electrical grid is not ready, and yes, a plan is needed, but misguided information about the difference between residential electrical and natural gas cost is wrong, and misguided to our young next leaders. The load on our grid is not handling our current load. Major green energy institutions that we need can't even build infrastructures to help our grid fast enough. Maintenance and upgrades are behind, which, as you know, pushing our grid is dangerous in a drier climate. Our grid is not ready. Unless you have solar, you're at risk for higher costs. The cost of gas is lower than electrical service. This is why we use cogens that are fueled by natural gas to make electricity. The domino effect of misinformation is going to affect Oregon's stability, sorry, I'm a little nervous, and affect our beautiful Southern Oregon, which I love. Turning us into California is not what we need. We need a plan. And if we plan, we'll be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brian O'Geary?
Skip Mark Culp.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark Culp.
Yeah,
Okay.
hi, I'm a resident of Jackson County. I've been born and raised, got a couple rentals. I just wanted to come out and support my brothers in the union and construction industry. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there about that it's going to be more expensive to do these gas homes. Yes, it might be expensive at first, but the rising costs of electricity, Pacific Power, just in our area, I know, outside of Jackson County, there's PG&E and all that stuff. But as far as Pacific Power goes, they've upped it almost 50% since 21, and I think the electric prices are going to keep going up. And I think there's just a lot of misinformation about there. You guys could be right, or you guys could be wrong. I think I'm just here to state my opinion and let you guys know I think it's a bad idea. I think staying with gas is a great idea, and I back Avista, and like I said, my brothers in the union. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Archuleta, followed by Paul Mozina, Lucretia Smith, and Rook House.
Hi, council members, mayor, and I represent Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 290 and gas distribution workers. The Local 290 legal team has reviewed this proposed ordinance and has given me their thoughts to share. They believe there are significant concerns with the legislation potentially being both preemptive by the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, EPCA, and unconstitutional under the recent Supreme Court decision called Sheets versus County of El Dorado, and also Greater Atlanta Home Builders Association, Henry County, Georgia. Additionally, the Supreme Court just last year in the Sheets case said that the impact fees that can be unconstitutional under the Constitution's taking clause when such fees do not have a rough proportionality to the government land use interest. The court also said that local government may not require someone to give up or pay more than is necessary to mitigate harms resulting from development. Again, thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. Paul Mozina?
This is an ideological battle that Ashland should not be getting involved in. This ordinance will have zero impact on the climate. It is nothing more than an attempt to use Ashland to virtue signal in the global climate debate regarding climate change. In March 2017, President Trump signed an executive order disbanding the interagency working group that was tasked with coming up with an estimate for social costs of greenhouse gas. Then in January 2021, President Biden rescinded Trump's executive order, replacing one of his own that resulted in the current EPA modeling on social cost of greenhouse gas. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump rescinded Biden's executive order, which puts all the work of the IWG and EPA regarding estimating the social cost of greenhouse gas and application of the estimates for policy decisions in doubt. The EPA's modeling used to estimate the social cost of greenhouse emissions is flawed and useless for policymaking purposes. The EPA's modeling does not integrate the climate damages or discounting model, and yet they feel they can predict what's going to happen 60 years from now. It's ridiculous to take the social cost of greenhouse gas pricing seriously for policymaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucretia Smith, followed by Rook Howes, Caleb Haringa, and Amy Brown.
Thank you. Yes, CO2 comes from dying trees. One volcano can put out more than mankind has put out over the last 100 years, over the whole planet, okay? You've got all this CO2 from just 16 ships coming from China puts out more than all the cars in the country. Just 16 a day, okay? You're not going to stop the CO2, and it's not what's causing the climate change. It's geoengineering of our climate plus natural changes, okay? But the thing is we need redundancy. If you listen to Eric Dollard, who's been in the utility business for 57 years, what they're doing with the transformers, not using certain wires, but also not using the soil, we could have an EMP and all of our electrical grid is gone. And with the ice age coming on, which we know from John Holden, Obama's scientific czar, said you put enough particulates in the atmosphere, you're going to block the photosynthesis, you're going to create a famine, you're going to create an ice age. And so we need redundancy in our ability to stay warm during this coming ice age, because we're definitely, our skies with all the fires, with all the volcanoes, with...
Thank you.
Yeah. We need redundancy.
Rook Howes.
Hello, members of City Council. My name is Rook Howes, and I am a resident of Ashland, Oregon. I am speaking here in support of the carbon pollution fee. This fee is an important step to improving air quality, increase energy affordability, and begin meeting our climate goals. I urge Council to follow the leadership of the youth of Rogue Valley, who have been organizing and working for climate justice for 2 years. The issue of climate pollution matters to me because public health impacts everyone, especially children. As a child care worker and educator, the health and safety of children is my #1 priority, and this ordinance provides a clear path forward to help the most vulnerable in our community. For all our futures, pass the carbon pollution fee, and I urge you to continue the work to transition Ashland away from fossil fuels and prepare residents to be resilient to the face of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Caleb Haringa.
I already spoke, but you should pass the fee.
You signed up twice. Okay. Amy Brown, followed by Lily McClain, and Ann Gaffney, and Russell Phillips.
There are people in front of me. I'm Ann Gaffney.
Amy Brown, Lily McClain.
Hey guys, I'm back. Good evening, Council. My name is Lily Milan. I live in Ashland. I'm back again to fetch about the way the city treats the environment and homeless people. Many of you are old enough to remember when it became illegal for the tobacco industry to lie and lobby their way into billions of dollars in profit. I would ask you to keep your promise to these young people and not fall for the lobbyist playbook currently being used by the gas industry to bamboozle this council. Don't let a corporation override the loud and clear voice of your community members. Speaking of community members, it was brought to my attention that the warming shelter only allows 14 beds, and anyone that enters after may enter, but has to stay awake all night per the fire marshal's instructions. During the snowstorm, the number was raised to close to 30, but has since been lowered again. Can someone please explain to me, like I am one of my preschool students, why the city has such wishy-washy policies regarding its homeless population? Most people in the city are closer to being one of those people in the tents on this lawn than they are to being the people on this council. I ask you to use this position of power to keep your promise not just to the Youth for Electrification campaign, but also to those in your community most in need of your consistent support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Gaffney?
Hi, Ann Gaffney. I'm a resident of Ashland. I want to start by thanking you for your support at the first reading of the pollution impact fee. And I'd also like to thank Avista and the Northwest Coalition of Energy Choice, because if not for their paid telemarketer's phone call to my home, who called their employer the Northeast Coalition for Energy Choice, I wouldn't be here tonight, because I wouldn't have bothered, because we have such great support in our community. But it was a red flag to me to realize that the industry is so threatened by a local issue and wanted to make it a national one. I urge you to continue to listen to your residents of Ashland as we make the decision to continue to have a choice about how we fuel our homes. We can still use gas if you pass this ordinance, but we're going to have to just pay the cost of what it does to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Russell Phillips, Timothy Dolan, or Amy Brown?
Amy's not here.
Okay. All right. So that concludes our public testimony time for this issue. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 3254, an ordinance amending AMC Title 9, Health and Sanitation, creating Chapter 9.45, carbon pollution impact fee, and establishing standards for a carbon pollution impact fee for new residential structures in the city of Ashland, and direct staff to allocate any and all revenue generated from this ordinance to the Ashland Low Income Energy Assistance Program within the Electric Fund.
Is there a second? Second. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll need a little bit for this, please, because I think we all had a couple emails hit our inbox these past couple months. And there's a great deal to discuss here. However, the following is what I've chosen to focus on this evening. Affordability. Earlier today, I pulled a current list of all new construction currently on the market in Ashland. At this time, there are approximately 29 units available with a median price of $729,000. The way this ordinance is written, if you are in the market for one of these homes, or if you're completely demolishing your home and rebuilding from scratch, and only on or after January of 2026, then you are one of the very few for which the contents of this ordinance applies. If you are not one of these individuals, meaning that you live in or work in any other structure in this city, or are purchasing or in the market for an existing home, this ordinance does not apply to you. If you are currently rent or own, or if you own a business or own the property of a business, this ordinance does not apply to you. If you are replacing any appliance and making any repair to your home, this ordinance does not apply to you. We have so much work to do as a community, as a state, and indeed as a nation, as it relates to affordability of housing. I simply do not believe that this particular ordinance has any effect on it as it is written. Choice. Nowhere in this ordinance is language that prohibits any choice of energy source. I believe in freedom of choice, especially as it relates to energy, but with that choice comes an equal amount of responsibility. Nowhere is there any ban for any structure, for any type of new or existing residential, nor commercial, or any other classification of structure. It should be noted that we have had for many years language in our municipal code addressing fireplace inserts, among others. The city does not ban them. However, they do regulate them in alignment with the Department of Environmental Quality, and there are associated fees for installation. In fact, the only fuel source ban that I could find in Ashland Code is AMC 9.08.270, entitled, quote, prohibiting the sale of coal. A word about fees. When a government collects any form of revenue, it is the responsibility for appropriating it in the highest, best, and most efficient manner. There will undoubtedly be a wide range of opinions to what that looks like, where some may be thrilled, others may see government waste or misappropriation. This is understandable, expected, and should always be thoroughly discussed and debated. In fact, whenever open debate is stifled is when I start to worry. In this case, the recommendation as presented to council is to direct fees from this ordinance to the general fund. And as a reminder, the general fund takes care of our police, fire, and other critical essential services. However, as applicable to this ordinance, I do not believe that this is the highest and best use at this time, and I believe it would be appropriate that any funds received from this ordinance be allocated to the Ashland Low Income Energy Assistance Program, which is why I made the motion that I did. Finally, I have made every attempt to reach out to as many people as possible on all sides that have contacted me in order to have a good faith conversation with the aim of learning, understanding, and gaining as much insight as possible about all facets of this very complicated issue in order to make the most informed decision that I can. Regardless of issue, and now more than ever, democracy and healthy debate are absolutely essential for maintaining a balanced society, and it is this open discourse and the good faith free exchange of ideas that fosters a deeper understanding of various perspectives. It is for these reasons, among other, as well as the process itself, is why I support this ordinance. Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Dale. I want to thank the students from the Road Climate Action Team for your work, as well as Chad Woodward and the Climate and Environmental Policy Advisory Committee for reviewing several options thoroughly and conducting 2 well-attended public hearings at the end of 2023, summarized in documentation we received for the first reading, and I'd commend everybody to read those lengthy documents with all of that background. In the last few days, I responded to dozens of virtually identical emails from Ashland residents activated by robotexts and emails from a gas industry lobby. I think I've responded to about 85 of them. In many cases, I had a useful dialogue with folks who departed from the lobby's talking points and asked questions from their own experience. Thanks very much to all those folks who took the time to engage with me around this rather than just repeating a talking point sent by somebody else. I think it's important to point out that this measure wasn't sudden and it's not proposed in a vacuum. I'd point first to Ashland's Climate and Energy Action Plan approved by the Council in 2017. That's 8 years ago. Second, we know net methane is a potent greenhouse gas, and Senator Jeff Golden spoke to that in his comments that he sent in. And transitioning away from using it when there are better alternatives makes sense economically and environmentally. Third, as a city, we offer an array of incentives to help folks in existing homes swap out their fossil fuel equipment and appliances when they choose to do so. So in this context, it would be contradictory not to try to slow installation of fossil fuel equipment in new homes, because it's much more difficult and costly to retrofit a gas home with higher efficiency electric equipment than build it all electric in the first place. Several speakers spoke to that. I appreciate the seriousness with which our staff and advisory committee looked at a range of options, not just this one, and reached out for input from Avista, developers, realtors, and others, including every single contractor who applied for a permit with the planning department in the last 5 years. There were 2 hearings 2 years ago that had hundreds of people speaking. Following the polluter pays principle, I concur that charging a fee equivalent to the social cost of carbon based on EPA and industry estimates is the most appropriate option. It preserves consumer choice while putting the cost onto those who choose to pollute for whatever reason of their own. No questions asked. I'm going to support this measure.
Any further discussion? Councillor Bloom.
Thank you. I would just like to offer my thanks to Councillor Dale for making that change and staff direction for the collection of the fee. It means a lot. Thank you.
Councillor Hansen.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to disclose potential conflict of interest. I own a solar company, and while it is unlikely the proposed ordinance could be perceived as potentially benefiting my business, despite these considerations, I believe I can evaluate and vote on this matter impartially, keeping the city's interests as my primary concern. The transition to decarbonization is underway, and this is a step in the right direction. And we all are relying on fossil fuels currently to get our work done to move in this direction. I do not have my head in the sand that we are all partners moving forward as humanity to improve ourselves. So I just respect everybody in this room and their opinions. But I think that this is a tiny step in the right direction, and I am very grateful for this community and for the Rogue Climate Action Team Network for being consistent and vigilant in seeking solutions to towards decarbonization and towards their future. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our staff and our legal team, and I look forward to even more progress.
Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I would like to give my appreciation to the youth of Rogue Action Climate, the resilience of our future. And our future, they are inheriting this. I too appreciate everybody's input and everybody's suggestions and your passion for what you came to the podium and spoke to. However, when I look at this makes sense. This makes sense. We are not, something that was mentioned earlier by Councilor Kaplan, this was not a rushed, hurry up kind of a thing. We've been dragging this and dissecting it and chewing on it for 3 years. And over the last week, we had 89 emails that came to us. So I want to thank all of you. I myself personally, I can't speak for all council, but I've given this a lot of thought. I too want to say that the money, the funds that will come from people who build new structures and choose to have gas in those structures, that the funds go toward the low income funding. So for people who would like to put electric infrastructure in their homes, they can. However, like I said earlier, this just makes sense, and I support this ordinance. Thank you.
Councillor Nauer.
I'll just add a couple of quick words to that, because what I was going to say, I had the fortunate opportunity to talk to Councilor Dale while we took our break, and he said it much more eloquently than I was going to say it. And he caught the one thing which procedurally, I don't know how he handles, but the way the ordinance is written right now, or this item, this document, says that it may be allocated to clean energy programs in the document. And your suggestion on your motion is that we would be going towards low income, I believe, utility assistance fund, whatever that may look like. Absolutely. I think that the nature of this, and some of my emails that I've received, which said that this effort was merely performative, no. If we have one house that was going to be electric and it has gas in it instead, it's going to be creating that much more pollution. A gas house that goes to electric is going to be creating that much less pollution. It may be 60 molecules of CO2, but I remember as a kid someone telling me a saying that I'm sure I'll get wrong, but that a butterfly flapping on the other side of the world can create a mighty wind on this side. I'm for that, and that's why I'll be voting yes.
So Doug, a quick question. No, ma'am. Doug, a quick question related to Councillor Nauer's procedural question. Should we, because the ordinance says may be used and allocated towards specific programs, and Councillor Dale's motion specifically sends it to the ALEAP program, should those be two separate motions?
I would recommend keeping it more general in case down the line we change the low income program. Right now it indicates it can go towards clean technology installations, including support for low income households. I think keeping the language broad, make sure that it's applied continuously to low income programs regardless of what they're titled or what that program is.
So Councillor Dale, what do you?
Yes, so if I understand, and thank you, Councilor Nauer, per our discussion, we had discussed the procedural relative to second readings in general and process, not necessarily about this ordinance. The question I have, it's my understanding that the low income energy assistance program is a program within the electric fund as part of the finance department, correct? So now I understand that is where my motion stands with that at this time, and I understand, Sabrina, that we can have a discussion and we're going into budget and we can figure out, I mean, we have a lot of discussion, we have a lot of very important conversations forthcoming, coming down into spring with what our budget looks like as a municipality across the spectrum. But as it stands now, I'd like it to be specific to that fund at this time.
So if I can just, my understanding is that your motion is accepting the language as presented, but directing, not changing the language in the ordinance, but directing staff at this time to put this funding directly into the ELITE program.
That is correct, because there is no language specific within the ordinance that states exactly where to do it. Therefore, that's why I added to direct staff.
Right. Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Dale. I agree with you. I think that I stand by the direction to put it into the Low-Income Energy Assistance Fund. I think the language that Councilor Nauer pointed to is paragraph 9.45.050. That's penalties, where it says that revenues collected from penalties, which are to be levied for somebody who is in non-compliance with paying the fee, would be allocated to clean energy programs. So in fact, I think the ordinance could stand exactly as it is and allocate revenues from penalties to clean energy programs while allocating any funding from the fee itself to the Ashland Low-Income Energy Assistance Program. My reading of the ordinance is correct.
Yes.
And
it doesn't prevent it from doing that, and if that's what the direction is towards staff or towards, that would be a budgeting question at some point, I suppose, but that would be what we would do. So it wouldn't necessarily have to go.
So just to be crystal clear, I am in complete alignment with Councilor Kaplan. I am aware of the penalty statement.
Yes.
I am aware of the language that says may and what it could be done there. What I am referring to specifically are the fees itself that were not specifically stated within the bulk of the ordinance. And therefore, I'm providing, as part of the motion, staff direction because it is not stated, and therefore it's aligned. Is that, would you agree, Councilor Kaplan?
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Before we go to the vote, I just wanted to speak briefly to this motion and to this ordinance. We often hear people say that Ashland is little and whatever we do doesn't matter in the larger global budget of carbon. But what we know is that the larger global budget of carbon comes from what people do in their communities all around the world. And that while a solution in Ashland is not sufficient by itself, a solution without our communities doing what they can is not possible. And so my hope is that this council will move forward with the second reading and approve the second reading of this ordinance, because this is how we protect, in whatever way we can, the future for our children and our grandchildren. And in all the decisions that we make as a council, that's what I hope we are aiming for. If there is no additional discussion, roll call please, Alyssa.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Nauer?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Thank you, and we move on now to unfinished business. The 2200 Ashland Street Facility Plan. If you can all exit quietly so we can continue with our business, thank you. The 2200 Ashland Street Facility Plan Ad Hoc Committee.
That's
Sabrina?
me, sorry. A lot of commotion. Tonight, the mayor is proposing an additional ad hoc committee. So in your packets, you have a description of what that mission would be. This would be a round 2 of an ad hoc, so a different ad hoc committee from the first 2200 ad hoc committee, if that makes sense, to do more master planning for the site. And I think, Mayor, if you wanted to get into
Sure,
specifics.
I will pick up from there. Thank you, Sabrina. The ad hoc committee that brought forward the master plan for what would be made available at the 2200 site is very interested in continuing to work to help create the container of that site and to stay involved as we go through the design process to identify what the remodel will look like and to provide a direct avenue for feedback back to the council for this next body of work. Again, it would be an ad hoc committee. It would be a short time period, probably another 6 months. The bullet items that are in the description in your packet come directly from the master plan that the council approved at the last meeting. And what we are thinking is that we would open it back up again for applications. Certainly anyone who was still serving on the ad hoc committee when it was completed would be invited to come on and serve again, but we may bring some additional interested voices into the ad hoc committee moving forward. The cadence would be different than what it had been before. You'll remember that we had this committee on a very tight timeline, and they were meeting every 2 weeks with a professional facilitator to help us really make sure that we kept our promise around the community engagement aspect of this. What is in front of you today is a little bit different in that it would function more like a traditional ad hoc committee. I understand that we have a position coming on maybe at some point in the future. But in the meantime, that we would manage this ad hoc committee with existing staff. This group has come together. They are functioning well together. And we don't necessarily need to have that same level of administrative lift. One of the things that this committee would do is provide a recommendation at the end of their work regarding what does the future of interaction with the community look like specifically for this site. And the hope is that to the extent that we land on the optimal solution for that building, that there wouldn't need to be a lot of formal ongoing processes, that whatever that looks like going forward will be on such a strong foundation that it will not need to continue on at the same level of investment from the city. So what you have in front of you tonight is a request to affirm the creation of a second ad hoc committee to keep going with this process through the design build, or at least through the design element of that space. And then you'll see also they have recommendations for some of the elements that will create that container in the atmosphere for that building. Again, these are recommendations that would come back to council, so this body would have the ability to refine, review, accept or not accept any of the recommendations that come from this group. Are there any questions? Councilor, questions? If there are no questions.
Yes, I do have questions.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Dale.
Yeah, I'm curious. So I may have missed that, may just have been inside my head for a second. What would be the potential cadence of meetings for this particular committee?
I'm thinking it's once a month, like a typical ad hoc committee.
And so as we dig in, so we have the plan, the recommendations that we got from that committee. Have we appropriately given staff time to execute on that, to try to do something? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to make sure of is that that I'd love to see where staff goes with that. I mean, maybe this is a question to you, Sabrina, is how do you, I'm trying to figure out, do you have what you need? Do you need more information? Where are you at relative to this? Because it starts to kind of feel technical with a MAC, like was mentioned in there, and I get that, but I also want to understand the benefits of an ad hoc and maybe the question I'll bounce back to the mayor after you, but.
Yeah, so where we're at right now, we're in the process of pushing out a design build RFP because we know the restrictions of the building, obviously, for the severe weather shelter capacity in terms of sleeping. So that is a priority. We've already gotten council direction to look into both shower facilities as well as storage and expanded restrooms. So we are doing that, and then laundry. So those are the elements that are part of the plan that have been dictated by council to move forward with. So, in a perfect world, we will have that done by November. Construction is never perfect, but that is the goal, so that it can operate as a severe weather shelter next winter. In terms of the use of the building, that obviously is a severe weather shelter. That was its intended use. I think there is some opportunity to partner with some nonprofit service providers, but I think that is a bigger conversation with council about the services the city is going to help coordinate for that population within that building. So My concern with an ad hoc is just staff's capacity right now to handle that with budget season. It would come out of the city manager's office. More than likely, I would be the staff liaison.
Would we, may I, Mayor?
Sure.
Thank you. So it occurs to me that you've got the RFP out right now, so then the ad hoc would, kind of like we had with other committees, I would assume be part of reviewing the
No.
RFP. No? Okay. All right. Okay.
So right now, the ball is in staff's lane for the construction.
Yeah.
We don't need
okay.
input for the construction.
Right,
We
right,
got
right.
the input from council,
Got
so
it.
we don't need the ad hoc.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Mayor, I'm sorry.
No, just, I think that there would be interest in this, and maybe even interest at the council level at looking at the designs that come back in, and formally, weighing in on them. The other things that you'll see on your list are that they're really looking at assisting the city with, what are the program and site management policies, a client bill of rights, code of conduct, behavior contracts, those sorts of things. And we recognize that they are going to bring ideas forward, and this body is going to make final decisions. But I think what has been created with that ad hoc committee is really, it's very special. It has come together different audiences that relate to that site in a really productive and useful way, and allowing them to keep going a little bit longer in order to help us shape that atmosphere consciously at that space, so that it does what this original ad hoc committee was charged with, that it provides very real, impactful homeless services, and also is a positive benefit to the neighboring community. I think there's just a little bit more work to be done by this group. Again, not at the same level of intensity, and I would be happy to work with Sabrina to figure out what is a good way to be able to help this ad hoc committee do its work without adding additional strain at the staffing level. Go ahead, Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate your comments. Having the opportunity to liaison and work with the first ad hoc committee, I think that what the mayor touched on before is how everyone came together and meshed together and came up with a very good consensus and brought it to council. But my question is, in saying all that, this ad hoc committee would start when? I didn't.
Once we would open it back up for additional members, and then appoint them. So we've got some time before they would come on. I don't know exactly the timing, but we would work that out. I would work that out with Sabrina to figure out what is the most optimal timing, given that we have budget constraints, and finding out when the design process is expected to start, when they might have. They may have some of these elements ready. So this group could potentially start a little bit later.
It could start after budget process.
Potentially.
Because,
We need to see what
yeah,
that timing looks like.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilor Kaplan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I think some questions along the same lines as Councilor Duquesne. In terms of timing, so what I'm understanding from you is that the timing is not, short term. Could take place a little bit later, because the nature of the activities being advised on are not about the design build. They're not the urgent thing. It's much about the use of the space. So it would not hold. Am I understanding correctly that this would
Most
not
of it
hold
is,
up?
but a site plan design is one of the things that this group would like to make comments on.
So would it?
So
hold
they
up?
would need to be up and running by the time that we had a draft design.
So when would the draft design be ready? Because I want to make sure that we're not holding up the work, the building.
No, yeah, we don't want to hold up the work.
So I don't know. It would probably be April in an ideal world. I think it's not a site design, it's a building design for a sprinkler install and showers and laundry. I think my interpretation of a site design was for the land around the property.
Yes, so what we're talking about is just the building. Just the process that we have in place now with the RFP, that's the element, the design element that they would like to make comments on. So
And I would not recommend having the ad hoc involved in that, because at this point, we are trying to move as quickly as we can to ensure that building is up and running by winter for a severe weather shelter, and I'm not sure there's a lot of value to be added past the direction that council has already given staff regarding what needs to go in that building.
I would suggest that given the difficulty with which that facility came into this space, that we need to support the community process that was started with the first ad hoc committee, understanding that we cannot allow that to slow us down.
Agreed.
And I think there's a way to thread this needle.
So can I follow on?
Go ahead.
Because when I'm looking at the committee charge, I see a site plan, and I do think that responds much more. Much of the master plan, in fact, was about the site more than the building. Although there were certainly some elements to add into the building. So it seems to me that the site plan could certainly be developed while the building is being designed and then constructed. And then the rest of the things are really some of the soft pieces, which are about how the facility, how the site is actually managed. And that is a much more longer term effort and not so time sensitive as getting the building. Because I don't want to do anything to slow the retrofitting of that building so that we're in the same situation that we were this year and not having it usable.
Councilor Dale.
Thank you. Maybe I'd like to dig into kind of the back office procedural stuff. Well, I'm still kind of going down a management advisory committee like we did with the community center. Does that, what kind of flexibility, what kind of structure, what kind of, does it tie or untie your hands? I mean, I certainly appreciate the contributions and all of the hard work that the members of the ad hoc committee did. I'm worried about things like the structure and procedural items that may unintentionally slow down things. I do understand there's respect there, but I want to see if we can be nimble while we're going to actually move forward. Is that, what would be some differences between those two?
Yeah,
You
one,
would
I
say.
would like to decouple the construction of the building from any sort of MAC or ad hoc. So that would be staff's recommendation, so that we're not slowed. I have council direction of what you want to see in the building. I don't think that we need more than that, because council ultimately has the say. I think in terms of a MAC versus an ad hoc, I think a MAC can be a little more nimble, and that we can appoint specific people for specific questions that we have for that. So in terms of, having a client bill of rights, we probably want to talk to service providers to understand how they service people when it comes to that, as well as community members and what they'd like to see. So I think depending on what's going on in this list, there may be different people who may need to tap into a MAC overall.
Councilor Bloom.
Thank you. That's a really good segue. I was very much on the other side of this and was very sure that a MAC is the only way to go. I think what it really comes down to is who are the members of this ad hoc committee, right? And so certainly the folks that were involved by the end of the last ad hoc committee that were part of that process, I think are really important. As I explained to Mayor Graham, I think it's really important to have a general contractor, not somebody who's coming from the city, but just broad, does not have a stake one way or the other on the issue of homelessness or providing services, but simply, hey, this is what I see as a general contractor. And I think importantly too is that this committee would need to be comprised of folks that are willing to compromise. I think that we can run into some serious issues in talking about being nimble if we have individuals who are unwilling to compromise, who say it's going to be this way or no way, or we're going to sue the city if you don't do it the way that we want to do it. And so as long as this ad hoc committee is comprised of members that are willing to work together and stay true to what the first ad hoc committee did, I could see myself getting behind this. But I guess we'll see once we see what the members that come forward and apply.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the ad hoc, in terms of staff time, that's public noticing, that's minutes, that's all capacity that, quite frankly, I'm not doing other things.
So we have someone who's signed up to speak. I'd like to take the testimony, and then we'll come back to questions. Debbie Nicewander?
Hello, Debbie Nicewander here. Hey, I was on the 2200 Master Plan Committee, and I didn't realize that it cost $26,000. And when I found that out, I'm really bothered by that. I feel like apologizing. But it looks like we want to spend another $26,000. And that's kind of what the fiscal thing is showing. And I just can't see it. You know, $26,000 is a lot of money. And I think we need to look at a way to come together where money isn't a big issue, or doesn't need to be that amount of money. We can't even get $200 for a fire watch. And anyway, I have problems with that, and I just wanted to put it out there.
Thank you. So Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. It's interesting because you said earlier how this ad hoc would be different because we did have a professional facilitator for the first one. And my question was really the question that was asked, because this is going to be more like an ad hoc committee, and we're not going to have a facilitator. What is the $26,000 for?
There wouldn't be another large
Okay.
expenditure. That's what I'm saying, is I believe that this
Well,
group.
'cause I saw it in.
Have you?
It does say.
It does.
Most fiscal
Staff
impact.
report says.
Staff report.
As
So,
stated.
so you're suggesting that we would need a similar expense?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's an expense with an ad hoc, any ad hoc, right? There's staff time that's being spent towards that. We won't have an outside facilitator, but whatever, there's just a cost to these committees is the point of the fiscal impact.
And the cost you assume would be the same amount for a cadence that is half of the previous schedule?
I would assume it would take a number of months for this ad hoc.
I think it's 6 meetings.
And we have no facilitator, and it was.
But we
still
wouldn't have a
26.
facilitator. We would have, I was under the impression that we were
would
hiring
have
for that position, and that person could do this work, which is not a bad way to start relationship developing around that facility. It sounds like maybe there's a question about that position that we'll need to have more discussion around.
Yeah.
But it's not an additional $26,000, right? You're talking about staff time.
And so, can I?
Yes.
Part two. So part two of that question was, well, it was something that Councilor Bloom brought up with having the right kind of people on this ad hoc committee. And I just wanted to say that previously it was a mixed bag of people and everybody came together. That was my experience. Unhoused, housed, people who lived on the south end of town, whether they were in a house, a car, or tent, and everyone came together and had consensus. So I think that it's good to be able to follow up with what's already put out there. And it's my understanding that a lot of people from the first ad hoc are very interested in being on the second. And I agree to be able to have a construction person, somebody who's knowledgeable and with no skin in the game is a good way to go also.
I think if I may, can I clarify something? I think what I wanted to what I was trying to hone in on here is that there was very specific recommendations from that previous ad hoc, and there was very specific things that they said that they do not want. I think bringing in individuals who say, I don't care if that's what the ad hoc said that they don't want, this is what we're going to do, and create a disruptive atmosphere where we are not able to move forward in an expeditious way in coming to conclusions on what this next version would look like. That's a concern of mine.
So let me speak to that briefly. What I did before the last ad hoc was developed is I called all of the applicants, and I came forward with a list of people that all had agreed in their discussions with me that they understood that we were balancing equally the needs of the neighborhood and the needs to provide appropriate and meaningful homeless services. And I asked every one of them specifically, can you manage within that framework? And everybody said yes, and everybody managed. At this point, that group has formed relationships, and it can function without a formal facilitator. We had different people, different ones of us who were involved in that. And I think that there is a solution here. I recognize that staff is significantly burdened with a variety of contracting realities and the budgeting process. And so I think I think we can thread this needle such that we don't overlap in that space, especially if we're focused more on the site plan and less on the building plan. Councilor Dale, and we're at 9:07. We need to
Yes,
move
do.
along.
Okay. Yep. No, only quick question. How many members were we planning on? What was it? Was it 12 before?
We ended up with 6 at the end.
Six
So
at
it
the end?
says.
It would be 6
we,
again?
We may add a couple of people. We'll open it up.
Okay.
Because that's appropriate for a new committee.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no additional questions, the floor is open for a motion.
I'll do it.
Councilor Bloom?
I move the creation of an additional ad hoc for 2200 Ashland Street to develop a site plan for the property.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Bloom?
No, I think we've belabored this enough.
Councilor Kaplan?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Oh, was it Councilor Duquesne?
I think we are.
I wasn't looking this way, so.
I don't have anything else to say either. I think I think we should do it and make sure that we're not in any way inhibiting the finishing of the building. So
Yes.
I think we've come out in a good place.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Dale,
No.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
Okay, we move on to the next order of unfinished business, the request to withdraw Affordable Housing Trust Fund RFP to allow for strategic discussion regarding how best to invest the funding. This is something that I have brought before the council for consideration. There is a standard process that we have typically followed with our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which, as you recall, is a set aside of our marijuana proceeds, tax proceeds, specifically to support affordable housing. In the past, we have not had a housing production strategy in place, nor have we had the community housing development partners we would need to be able to move forward on any of our either internal sites or potential internal programs. And so you'll see from the past expenditures that we have at times, contributed that money to more social service oriented elements, and that's good work. But I think we have some affordable housing options to discuss in front of us before we allocate what is essentially the next 2 years of that budget.
Yeah.
And so the staff has appropriately put out the RFP because that's a process we have always followed. But my request to council is that we pull that RFP, that we have that deeper conversation, which we can have at the retreat. And get clear about how we want to invest that money. It's not very much money, and so investing it very surgically and strategically, I think, is important. I gave you an idea in this packet that is just an idea that I have been working on, but there are other ideas for us to consider as well in honing in on what is the most strategic way to use this money. So that's my request. The RFP has not closed yet. And it's out a little bit further out. I know there are a lot of questions in the community about, that timing, but that's why we would need to make the decision tonight if we are going to pull it. Councilor Nauer first. Got a whole line.
Just a simple administrative question. Is the horse out of the barn on this? Do we already have RFPs in-house for people who've done the work to try and obtain these funds?
I don't know if we've received any proposals.
I don't believe we've received any proposals. We definitely have interest. We've asked people to hold off until council's decision so they don't waste their time.
Yes. Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. In the suggestion motion where it says schedule a meeting process that allows, is the meeting process, could you speak to like what that process would be and like what timeline and outcome?
Right. So Sabrina, we've been looking at that as part of the retreat. And so I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yes, so this can be an item on our March 1st council retreat to talk about the use of these funds moving forward if council decides to pull the RFP.
Thank you.
Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe I can help speak to Councilor Nauer's question. Typically, it's a lot of the same organizations apply for these. And I think it's been a long time that we've taken a step back and decided what is our strategic goal. A lot of these organizations, they just apply, they get money, and we move on. And I think that this is a really good opportunity to take a high-level view and be, really smart with how we're investing this money, and maybe even establish, clearer standards and expectations for the folks that are applying for these funds as well.
We don't disagree.
Any other questions? Councilor Kaplan.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. So I'm hearing that this is going to be a quick process, that it's not going to be a long delay, and I'm certainly supportive of taking a step back, a pause to be more strategic. I have a couple of concerns. One is that it not be delayed, and that's what I'm hearing. At the same time, I've got a little bit of the opposite concern, is making sure that we've got the right strategic inputs in order to take a strategic decision. And I'm a little worried if it's on the retreat with a number of other things, and it's just us, and we don't have any input from some of the experts in this area, people that have been working on this, that we may not actually identify and then point our nose in the right direction, the right strategic direction. That's number one. The second one is once we come up with a strategy, whatever we do, and I think it's probably going to, my preference would probably be to take a slight bit more time than March 1st to have our strategic ducks in a row. Are you also suggesting using the money in a way that's different than a RFP process? Would there then be...
Not necessarily. I mean, there could easily be an RFP process that comes out after that with more refined goals.
So the strategy, so what we come up with would be, the output of our work would be to come up with a strategy and then a design for an RFP to comply with that strategy.
I would imagine. I mean, within the realm of what we might do with it could be that we use it in a way that is a staff-oriented. We might do something inside the city. I don't think that that's where we would end up. My inclination is to think that we would end up with an RFP because, we don't develop affordable housing.
No, exactly.
So that's not what we do. So I'm expecting that's the process that we would encounter.
It's not that much money in order to develop affordable housing, so we're going to need a partner. So I'm imagining a process that would be a competitive process. That's where I'm going with this.
Yes.
Where we would look for a partner to do whatever it is that we think that comes out of our strategic process.
Right, and one of the things that, just to give you a suggestion is that, or an example, is that one of the things in our housing production strategy is around land banking. Now, $100,000 a year doesn't buy you much land, but that is something, if we did decide this, if the council decided to do that, then we would actually not have an RFP process initially, right? We might go looking for land. Like I say, I don't think that's where we're going to end up because it's not enough money to do that, but that's what I'm saying, it's a broad, I don't want to unnecessarily narrow the scope of the council, but I'm anticipating that we would end up in an RFP process.
Yeah, I'm imagining this money, because it is so small, would be catalytic, would not be,
Right.
spent on something to do the whole thing.
Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here. However, I was looking at this housing trust fund money, and putting a pause on it and withdrawing it, I think, can be a good thing, especially now. And I look at the land banking, I look at the opportunities of partnering, and then I look at 2200, and we were going to take the CBDG funds to repair that building, the infrastructure, and the way that the federal laws are right now, we might not get that money for that building. So rather than to start doing something else, maybe we should withhold that money just in case we don't get the funds from the HUD money. We could take the Housing Trust Fund money to fix the infrastructure on 2200.
Well, I think that's one of the things we could talk about in this other discussion if we pull the RFP.
Yeah, because, and I'm in favor of pulling the RFP, and then we can talk about this in depth on March the 1st. We don't know what's happening. It's an unknown with the CDBG. We have 2200, so I do look forward to a deeper discussion.
Councilor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to reevaluate. I'm a little concerned that this group might not need some leadership from staff to have this discussion, like really to find out from Linda Reed or another appropriate staff member, like what do they think we should use this funds for? So I'm curious if our retreat is the appropriate place to invite staff to help us. I would think not. But if it is, I would just put a plug to get staff's input into this discussion. And if it's not appropriate to have it at the retreat, let's do it in a timely manner some other time where we can invite staff into the room.
Yeah, and this motion doesn't necessarily direct it to be at the retreat. So if the council decides to pull the RFP, Sabrina and I will work on, what do we think is appropriate, addressing the fact that we need to bring in some specific expertise, help us understand what our options are and how we might get to that catalytic place.
Do you know, Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Duquesne.
Mayor, is there any way that maybe, and I agree with my colleagues, we could do, have staff in the room with us, but I think that because at a retreat, we can just speak freely, because we can't all get in the room together and talk. If we could put this on, just on the agenda and touch on it and put our feelings and thoughts in it and then bring it back and talk to the experts, I think, and a study session, talking to the experts, our staff. But I would like to be able to touch base on it on March the 1st, so we could talk about it.
So we have, yes, another question, but we have someone who signed up to speak, so go ahead.
Okay, well,
Councilor
just real fast. On what Councilor Duquesne was saying, my issue with having staff at something like this would be that it might very likely drop down into a tactical discussion again, and we would see some of the things coming out of this that we've been doing all along. We have an opportunity, I think, in the retreat, if we choose to use that, to talk about the higher level combination of the various things we've put together, like the housing production strategy, like the Climate Friendly Act, like some of these other things, to say, what do we want the town to be? And what does that start to look like? And how do we want to then invest the monies? The $200,000 isn't going to do anything, but it's an opportunity to talk about how do we want to start aligning things for the forward direction of Ashland in the areas of housing, I think.
Councilor Bloom?
Yeah, if I may, because I discussed with a couple of you, and obviously I talked to Sabrina about putting a retreat together for that high-level view. The way I see it is the retreat happens, and that informs all of these other conversations that go out. But the first thing that we need to do is establish, what is the future of Ashland look like? Where do we want to invest money over the next biennium? And we got to do that first. And this is just another piece of that kind of says, okay, cool, we're uncoupling that can be out there, and what we decide to do with it will be informed by that conversation at the retreat.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so Rich Rohde has signed up to speak. Rich, if you can take to the microphone there, and 3 minutes maximum if you would. We're pushing tight on time.
Rich Rohde, 124 Ohio. I'm speaking as a 40-year resident of Ashland and not as my position within the Housing and Human Services Committee, because I'm not going to be on that in a little bit. But I was there. If you look at the history of the Housing Trust Fund in Ashland, it started because I was 20 years ago at a Washington meeting conference of the Center for Community Change that had brought in Mary Brooks, who was their project director for getting housing production housing trust funds all around the country. She was their Johnny Appleseed of that. And we convinced her to come out here for free almost 16, 20 years ago and have 3 meetings with people in the community, and we designed the Housing Trust Fund. And I say that because the fortunate thing is we used the template that was developed by the Housing Trust Fund project. And so we got the best Housing Trust Fund plan in the country because of that. And it was designed partially to have a commission or a committee do the work of evaluating and understanding and looking at housing issues that come up within that housing plan, and specifically to take the role of the city councils out of that. And you would be the final decisions, but the projects are designed to be done by a competitive process, open to people, and having a commission or a committee that is understanding of all the roles. You've already done a housing production strategy. You've already done a housing capacity. So all those things have been done. What you're going to do at a retreat will be very little added to what we need to do in a current housing crisis. And because of that, I'm just really urging you to go forward with the housing, the RFP that's out there. One of the points in the materials that you got was a housing plan that's pretty well developed, and it's a good plan. And the problem would be, and it's already out there in the community, if we stop the RFP and we go back and then that plan comes out as one of the groups that's planning for that money that hasn't been developed, it's going to look like somebody on the council put their thumb very strongly on the project that is there. And that should not be. This should be a totally objective, open process for everybody. So I urge you not to go along with the stopping of the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any final questions? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councilor Bloom?
Thank you. I move to direct staff to withdraw the 2025 Affordable Housing Trust Fund request for proposals and schedule a meeting process that allows the City Council to develop a focused strategy for investment of these funds consistent with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund policy.
Is there a second? Councilor Bloom?
Yeah, great discussion. I'm glad we kind of hammered out kind of what we're thinking that this all might look like. Look, funding is being restricted more and more, especially at the federal level. It'll hit the state and it will eventually hit us. Now is the time more than ever for us to really be smart about how we're investing our money and make sure that we're investing money that is going to benefit Ashland now and into the future. And doing business as usual, I think, is going to hold us back from making those kind of important decisions going forward. And so being able to take a step back and have this kind of strategic planning process is what's going to set us up for success going forward for our city. So I support this.
Councilor Nauer?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce Councilor Duquesne's comment there. I think that we have to consider the probability that there aren't going to be funds coming along that we are used to seeing, given the current federal political climate. And if that comes to pass, the more we have available that we haven't just pre-allocated because of some old process that we've continued to follow over and over again, I think it's a smart move.
Any further discussion? Councilor Hanson?
Yeah, I just want to also concur with all of us, council here, and I appreciate people's comments. Like, this is an element, but we need strategic planning for the city, and we're doing that. We're going to do a strategic plan for the city, just like we're going to do a strategic plan for our electric grid expansion and renewable energy. So this is a part of it. So I can support coming back to it. To Mr. Rohde's testimony, I'm a little concerned that we're going to get away from the objective spirit. But I appreciate your testimony, and I will take that in consideration at this retreat. But we're not going to solve for this at the retreat, I don't think. But I think it's great that we're all going to talk about it, and I can get behind that 110%. And it's part of this bigger strategic plan, because you're right, we have to see it to build it. So I can support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Nauer.
Yes.
Sabrina, of the two items under new business, are either one of them more time sensitive than the other?
Yeah.
We have a
Which one?
speaker on Zoom for the annexation one, so probably that one.
Okay, let's go ahead and move into the Grandview Terrace annexation and site review fee waiver request.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Brandon Goldman, Community Development Director. I will be very brief in terms of this presentation. The memo outlines that Mr. Kendrick of Casita Development has proposed that in recognition of fees paid for past applications for the property at 1511 Highway 99, that he would request that the council consider a waiver of planning action fees associated with a proposed development that he's preparing to submit for annexation of the property to develop 210 units of apartments within the city of Ashland upon annexation. I know that Mr. Kendrick is on the Zoom call and probably could speak better to any questions you may have, knowing that there are 4 minutes before the close of the meeting.
Great. Questions? And Mr. Kendrick, you have signed up to speak, so we don't have any immediate questions yet, but I'll go ahead and give you your couple of minutes. But we will need to get a motion on the floor before 9:30 in order to continue conversation. So if you can take 2 minutes at this point, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I first want to say I'll answer any questions you have. The changes that have been listed by staff are basically a result of the city ordinance and the new CFAC rules and the city ordinance itself. I can go more in detail with that, but I know we're restricted with time. If you want to ask me any of those specific questions that's listed under staff's report, I'll be glad to, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Councillor Hanson.
I prefer to make a motion.
Is there, we need to do any questions of Brandon and potentially the requester? Okay, floor is open for a motion. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you. I move to approve a fee waiver in the amount of $26,876 for the Grandview Terrace development at 1511 Highway 99, recognizing that this amount corresponds to the full fees previously paid for the prior applications.
Second.
Councillor Hanson.
I really appreciate that this is coming back before council. I thought the staff presentation here in the packet was very thorough. Mr. Kendrick, I appreciate you coming back to serve the community and move forward with this project. I personally think it's exciting, and I know many of my colleagues and Ashlanders do too. This seems an appropriate fee waiver, considering that so much work has gone into it already, and it seems appropriate and fair. So I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the project, and just thank you for sticking with it. And thank staff as well for all their hard work. I mean, gosh, so much hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo what my colleague just said, and thank you for your resilience and steadfastness. I'm glad to see you here, and I'm hoping this moves forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Kendrick.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I would just say that though I'm slightly disappointed that there's 14 fewer affordable dwelling units, it pales in comparison to my disappointment that this has been dragged out as long as it has. I know that is not on you, Mr. Kendrick, but I'm happy that this is going forward. I appreciate that you're doing this development. It's very much needed.
Okay, if there is no further discussion, roll call please, Alyssa.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Nauer?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Okay, by my clock, it's 9:29, so if we can get a motion on the floor, Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I move to direct the city manager to approve and issue a final request for proposal for the development of 6 city-owned residential lots within the Beech Creek subdivision as affordable housing, following review and amendments by the Ashland Legal Department as necessary, and to proceed according to the proposed timeline outlined in the RFP.
Second.
Okay, so we have bought ourselves 10 more minutes. And we're going to adjust our process a little bit to allow whoever needs to orient us a little bit beyond anything that's in our packet.
I can give a general orientation for you as well as those at home. Beech Creek subdivision, the city accepted 6 lots on August 20th from the developer in order to meet the affordability requirements. Those lots now being under city ownership, council directed staff to move forward with issuance of an RFP to find a qualified affordable housing provider that could develop those units in conformance with the planning requirements that are in place. The RFP presented before you for consideration still does need legal review, so part of that motion was to forward the legal department to review it and really issue the RFP and begin a developer selection process. The city may have proposals that are presented to request that the lots be provided for free or at a reduced price. Those will be points of consideration in the criteria in the RFP, as will the term of affordability. So for instance, properties that propose to, or developers that propose a land trust as a means of maintaining affordability in perpetuity would be ranked higher than those proposals that were proposing a minimum 30-year period to be consistent with the land use requirement through the annexation for ownership housing. And with that, do you got any questions?
Yes. So we wanted to give the opportunity to speak to their motion. Well, actually, we'll do questions first. Councilor Kaplan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brandon. So I had a question in the second sentence of paragraph 3 of the intro. There's a sentence that says, proposals must specify whether the developer intends to purchase one or more lots or seeks the property to be granted or provided at a reduced cost. And that sounds fine, but then I don't see that carried through in the requirements in either the proposal contents that you'd be actually asking that the proponents speak to that, or the evaluation criteria, how that differentiated intention would be evaluated. So do you have a
I do not have a response to that. I am noting that in the RFP, we identified a number of alignment objectives, type and number of affordable housing, affordable period, organizational experience capacity, timeliness of development, and design quality and sustainability. We can add one to that effect if that's the council's direction.
I think it makes sense. In the introduction, I thought it made sense. I don't know exactly what we'd be looking for, what we'd be rating higher or rating lower. So I think we'd probably need to be thinking about that, or you'd need to be thinking about that. Or do we prefer proposals that are asking for the land to become free, or market price, or reduced price?
Yeah, I think that we can definitely look at the evaluation criteria for selection and include a criteria that clearly stipulates that projects that provide the greatest affordability for the least in for the longest period, coupled with the investment from the city. We can wordsmith that, and if you've given direction to the city manager to incorporate that into the final RFP, can do so.
Okay, thanks.
So are we looking for an amendment to the motion?
Yeah, I think.
Would you like to offer one?
Yes, I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion. I'd like to direct the staff to include both in the requests, the requirements of the proposal contents and the evaluation criteria, appropriate handling of the cost that the developer is willing to pay for the property.
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions about the amendment? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the amendment. Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Nauer,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
And now we are back to the main motion. Are there any other questions? Okay, discussion. Okay, I would just like to thank staff for the timeliness of bringing this RFP back. I know we just got our first units last fall, and there was definitely a push from council to be able to get this RFP out sooner. That's why I wanted to come in under the line today so that you all could keep working. So I just wanted to appreciate staff for bringing that through in a really timely way so that we can get something happening on those lots. So if there is no further discussion, roll call please, Alyssa, on the main motion.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Nauer,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
And 6 minutes to spare. Nicely done. Meeting is adjourned.
It's because you're not in chair anymore.
You don't get to.